Check this out.
I got it.
Yo, check this out. This is Ammon Bundy's. It's the Fed Defense cowboy hat. That doesn't get better than that.
My little brother actually has one in the rope on the range. It's sweet. You get to watch him throw the rope, catch the calf. It's pretty sweet.
Yes, sir.
It is good. Who's ever thought you'd be doing that against the BLM?
Hey, you want to say hi to Resurrect the Republic listeners?
How you doing, guys?
We're burnt out. We need some help. Need some help out here.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Tom Lacavera Stewart, Resurrect the Republic, RTR Truth Media, Reloaded. On the line with Ammon Bundy. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how you doing, Tom?
Oh, well, you know, another day in the life.
We just take it one by one. It's
Yes,
just
sir.
the only way to do it, I guess.
Yes, sir. Well, you know, we talked a little bit yesterday, and you know, I wanted to, I have told my listeners time and time again how proud we all are of your dad, of your family. Brian's presentation in the court, really, for lack of a better way of saying it, I enjoyed the time that we spent in Pahrump, if you can enjoy being in federal prison. But
well, at least we were together, right?
yes, sir. We were together and we prayed and we well, it's just I was blessed to have been there and see your dad and you guys, and just this result of the trial is amazing. This shows what people can do when they stand, like they say, hashtag it matters how you stand, huh?
Yeah, you know, and the confidence that the Lord can give you through a process like this gives you the strength to stand and to know how to stand. Because none of us would be able to stand and continue to stand and have the strength because of what was upon us. None of us could have done that, or no one can do that without knowing that there's a greater power, that there's a greater being that's in power here, and that is God and His Son Jesus Christ, and that is what kept us going, knowing those things and knowing that He was in charge and that He wasn't going to leave us in there.
That's what kept me going all this time. It's been a trip, but it's been one that I made the best of, and I don't regret at all. You know, we saw what happened at the Bundy Ranch, and we got the word out and tried telling people how militarized the operation was there. And it's again one of the reasons why I came to Oregon too, because I knew that the law became unlawful, and when that happens, we have a right and a duty to stand in the spirit of resistance and give redress of our grievances in a way that'll be heard. So you want to talk a little bit about some of the discovery and what was learned in the trial by many, but that we already knew?
Yeah, so specifically talking about the Bundy Ranch, you know, what happened in 2014, the prosecutors, you know, they took and threw us in prison there and wouldn't let us get out. One of the things that was interesting that a judge, he was one of the retired judges, so he's kind of on, you know, emeritus status or whatever, and he was handling our release up in Oregon. His name was Judge Jones. And Ryan and I were down at literally one of the bottom floors in the federal building down in the cells. And it's just you've been down in there several times, Tom.
Yeah.
And, it's a cold, you know, concrete, metal bars, and, you know, it's a lot like a dungeon down there. Everything's metal and concrete and you know, bars and locks and security cameras and all that. And then here comes this federal judge, and he wants to talk to Ryan and I. And it was very interesting. So we begin to talk a little bit. He even pulls a chair. He has the marshals bring a chair in so he could sit on a chair, and we're sitting on the metal benches.
Oh, how privileged of him.
Yeah. Well, it was just so interesting one is that he would come down there, and two, that he would talk to us, and we were trying to kind of figure out what's going on. And he pulls out this list, and it's actually a colored list. Like, meaning what I mean by that is that there was a whole bunch of names on it. And I got a little glimpse of it, actually, and it was the names of all the defendants, both in Oregon and in Nevada, all the people that were arrested. And some of them had one colors on them, the other had other colors, like red and yellow and blue, and green also. And he literally went down that list, and he says, "Now, which one are you?" And I said, "I'm Ammon," And he said, "Which one are you?" And I said, "I'm," he knew we were Ryan and Ammon, but he didn't know for sure which one was which. So anyway, and he says, goes down there, literally takes his finger down the list. He goes, "I can't let you guys go. No, it says here I can't let you go."
It says here.
This was weeks before our release hearing. And so, then I could just see he's going down through these, names and these colors and so forth, and somehow he was told by somebody who he could release and who he couldn't.
Well, that's really interesting.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Here he is, the judge. He's supposed to have the authority to determine the facts and the law, and decide whether we can be, free to go home and fight this at home. But he was told by somebody, and there should be nobody whatsoever telling a judge whether he can release or not release, or whether, that's the purpose of a judge. And there shouldn't be anybody above or beside or anything else that's telling him what and what he cannot do. That is actually the true definition of prejudice.
It sure is.
Which is prejudice. And so, anyway, that's interesting. That might get people thinking and wondering what in the world, So then we end up fighting. We end up getting acquitted up in Oregon on all the charges.
Praise God on that.
Yep. And then they send us down to Nevada. And the one thing up in Oregon, as you know, there was no ability to even look up and practically prepare your defense. They give you no law library, they don't get you don't have access to the discovery, nothing. And it's literally such an injustice.
Yeah, that happened to me too. That happened. I was only given access for 2 hours out of 7 months, and I was given 3 sheets of paper and a pencil because they didn't even have a printer here at Lane County to prepare my case or be forced to accept a court-appointed attorney. It was crazy.
Yeah, so in Multnomah County, it's very similar. They have like these kiosks where you can look up some of the cases and some of the law, but you can't print anything off. And you don't have any Word documents or anything to prepare motions or anything with. You literally, it's just impractical to think that somehow that is allowing people to defend and to participate in their own defense. And it's just such an injustice. Anyway, so we basically, for 10 months, even fighting our case up there, we weren't able to look at the discovery unless we were with our attorneys, which that was difficult too, because getting in and out with them and all of that. And then we weren't able to do any preparations ourselves. It was very difficult. So then we go down to Nevada and CCA down there. Now they have a better, much, much better law library. There's like normal computers. You can, you have to pay them about 10 cents a sheet to get printing, but at least you get to do that. And you can look up cases and write motions and so forth. So that was much better, and you can get the discovery. Well, and the prosecutors made a mistake because by keeping us in there, we went through every bit of the discovery, every file, every document. And before we'd move on to the next, we'd understand what that document file was and all of that. And so we began to see very clearly that the federal agencies, primarily the Bureau of Land Management, 20 plus years ago, set this plan to provoke my father and support, anybody that was supporting him, to provoke him into acting in violence so they could use force upon him and remove him from the land and the public eye. And
it's just
however,
disgusting.
Yeah, it's very clear, but it's interesting because in their frustration, they began to show in their documents and so forth that my father would not be provoked to act in violence. And in fact, one of the agents in one of the reports says that Cliven Bundy is too savvy to allow himself to be provoked. That's what he says. He used the word savvy.
Wow,
And
so that shows deliberate intent to exacerbate the situation and do a violent confrontation.
Yeah, and what was my dad doing? My dad was calling on the governor of Nevada and the Clark County sheriff to protect him. Whenever there was an incident where they would come out and try to, do something to him and provoke him, my dad would pretty much just ignore them and call it the sheriff. And the sheriff, and, he would write constructive notices. And he was concerned, though, about what was happening. He could see what was happening. In fact, if you will, let me read a few things from one of his notices that he wrote to the sheriff. Sure. And this was clear back in November 27th, 1998. So imagine that. This is 20 years ago. And this is what my father says. I'll read you a little bit if you be patient. The above Nevada officials are hereby given constructive notice that an unconstitutional jurisdiction without limitation is being imposed upon me and my family's life, liberty, and property. Because the court has ordered this upon me, I fear for the well-being and safety of me and my family because of what agents did at Ruby Ridge and Waco. And further on, he says this: the United States and its agents have obtained a ruling from a federal district court judge here in Las Vegas that states I have no constitutional right, and they can operate against my life, liberty, and property without limitation. And then further down, he continues. He says, I have been a rancher and a steward of this range in this area many more years than there has been a BLM. If I were so dangerous and destructive for the range, how have I been able to continue in the ranching business producing livestock for all these years, as my heirs before me? And then continuing on, he states this. He says, I fear that my stand is an endangerment to my life and the lives of my family members, and will cause the destruction of my property rights by illegal acts of agents of the United States. They have attempted to paint me as a violent person, when all I have done is stand for my property rights. This fight today is no different than the civil rights days when Rosa Parks defied illegal local law and took her rightful seat in the front of the bus. I have to take that same front seat and stand for my rights here today. I have always conducted myself in a professional manner during this battle, with words on paper. I take issue with anyone who would try to paint me as some wacko extremist. I do not advocate violence and only want a legal and peaceful conclusion to the issues and my rights protected. Anyway, then, he ends up calling upon the Nevada officials to protect him. And he kind of ends, he says, I hereby demand that the above officials intervene and secure my 14th Amendment rights guaranteed in the Constitution and prevent an emergency which has the potential of causing the loss of me and my family's life, liberty, and property. The First Amendment guarantees me the right to redress my government. That is what I'm doing. Respectfully submitted, Cliven D. Bundy. So that's what he kept doing, because he could see this attempt to provoke him, he could see how it was going to basically put him and his family, all of us, into a great danger of where they would literally use it as an excuse to take away our lives and or our liberties and our property. And so, that was in 1998, wow. Tom.
Yeah, and I'm amazed that it went on so long. The pattern of abuse went on so long. and the pressure went on so long. And, you know, we all came out there after we knew there were people that were very reputable that I had spoken to while I was even on my way there that said that this was a military-style operation. And, you know, none of us, I mean, one of the biggest things that we all said was, no more Wacos. This is not going to happen. So praise God that everybody came running from all over the country. And the reason for this, and a lot of people still in the media are saying, you know, the violent extremists. Well, there's a pattern from the 80s of pressure and intimidation and what I call economic terrorism.
Absolutely. Judicial terrorism, economic terrorism, and, you know, provocations. Let me read you this, actually. I'm going to read you some of the actual discovery.
Okay.
And what this is when I say quote unquote, it's actually out of the BLM official planning documents for the you know, roundup for the impound on my father's cattle. This is the operational plan, and you tell me what you think, and your listeners can draw conclusions of what they think, and so. And because it's going to confirm, I think, exactly what you said, that there's a deliberate plan to, and certainly in this case, to provoke and to incite violence. And you guys can draw your own conclusion. Anyway, so obviously we see this 20-year plan to provoke my father into violence, and then we see their plan in this operation to get my father and supporters and so forth to act in violence. And so we get into this. Let's see. So in the official BLM and FBI and U.S. Attorney documents, especially in the sensitive government documents, officials admit that up to that point, quote, Bundy himself was less prone to initiate or support violence, unquote. They further admit that they did not know, quote, Bundy's threshold, unquote, or, quote, precise trigger that would elicit a violent response, unquote. Quote, nor are we able to detect what his actions would be to a direct threat, unquote. However, quote, if pressed into a corner and faced with having to defend its property, family, or person, his actions may be hard to forecast, unquote. In the official planning documents of this imminent action against the Bundy family, a plan was laid out to vice will use excessive federal force to push Bundy, quote, beyond his threshold, unquote, and either summons enough fear in Bundy to lose all, quote, semblance of hope, unquote, and give up his claim on the land or leave him with no choice but to defend his family and property. The official plan states that, quote, it is important that Bundy realize that impound operations are imminent so he can develop a plan B, unquote. Further, it says that this will give, quote, Bundy time to really weigh his options, identify and organize key players, and decide how he wants to handle the possibility of violence, unquote. Further officials reveal in this plan that, quote, while this planning time presents a double-edged sword for our LOE operation, it is in our best interest to face off against a more stable and measured Bundy contingent, vice a caged and a reactive one, unquote.
Good
so
Lord.
I believe it's evidence that the official plan was to exhibit such a show of force upon my father and family and the local community that it would either put them in a state of terror, causing them to lose hope, or to react in opposition, and this would give the federal agents justification to arrest or dispose of anybody who oppose them. And I mean, those are quotes right out of the official planning. They said they were going to vice a caged and a reactive one, unquote. That they were going to push Bundy beyond his threshold, and that I mean, it's just amazing. And they even said that this plan presents a double-edged sword for LOE operations. Well, you know, what does that mean? Basically, they're going to put their officers in danger in order to fulfill this plan. But they said they believed that it was in our best interest to do this.
You know, in my opinion, that meets all of the requirements for a RICO case against these agencies. I mean, this is talk about a corrupt organization. Wow.
Well, let me give you an example how they were doing this. Okay, so on March 28th, let's see. Let me get here because I want to be accurate. So on March 28th, let me get back here. So first of all, let me give you a little background. Knowing of the distaste that the ranching community has towards contract cowboys, and so your listeners know the contract cowboys are those that are hired by the BLM to go in and literally destroy other cowboys' ranch and livelihood. And so knowing of this distaste for contract cowboys, on March 28th, the BLM agent, and it appears in the discovery that it was unknown to the contract cowboys, and it was certainly unknown to my father. But the BLM agents arranged for the two of them to come together, meaning the contract cowboys and my father to come together, and then covertly film the incident from the desert. So,
entrapment.
Yeah, so let me give you how this all happened. Channel 8 News out of Las Vegas, Nevada, called my father and requested an interview. And the Channel 8 News crew wanted to interview my father near the BLM military-type compound, and that was up in the Tocquap Wash area. And my father, he agreed to it and met them at the gate on the morning of the 28th. And it was my father and three of my brothers, and they arrived in horses, just as they agreed with Channel 8 News, and they proceeded to perform the photo op and the interview. However, mysteriously, here come the contract cowboys. And they showed up with all their men and their gear and their equipment at the same time, and it creating a potential flashpoint between these contract cowboys and my father and brothers. And so it makes me wonder, is this what the federal agents meant when they wrote in the official plan that, quote, it is in our best interest to face off against Bundy, vice a caged and a reactive one? Okay? So let me go on to lay. I want people to know that this wasn't just something that might have happened. I want to give you the proof. I don't want you to just take it from me, just because maybe this was just happenstance. Maybe it just happened, right? But in fact, for the last 2 years, we thought this, coming together of the contract cowboys and the Bundy men, we thought it was just, an amazing coincidence, something that neither the BLM agents, the Bundy family, or the contract cowboys could have ever foreseen happening. After all, what would be the chances of, my dad being at the front gate of the BLM compound when the contract cowboys arrived for the first time? And surely my dad would know when the contract cowboys were due to arrive. And surely the contract cowboys wouldn't know that Channel 8 News was going to do an interview with my dad.
Sure.
And then surely, the BLM would not or could not arrange the two to be at the same time and the same place. And however, again, sifting through hundreds of hours of radio traffic between BLM agents, almost by chance, something different was discovered. And what we were doing is, going through all the radio traffic and digging through it all and listening to, and most of it was dead air. And I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds of hours of just static air. And then every once in a while there would be a little, few minutes of radio traffic communication. And we found this in some of the certified BLM radio traffic recordings. And they reveal that, in fact, the contract cowboys were staged by the BLM agents at an off-site location. The BLM agents knew the Bundy men were at the gate performing a photo op. The BLM agents directed the contract cowboys to proceed to the gate, knowing Cliven and his sons were there, and that the BLM agent in camouflage clothing was filming the incident at a distance. And so let me give you the actual transaction in the radio. So at 7:11 on the morning of the 28th, the radio traffic from BLM Agent 174 to Agent 351 says, "Am I reading this right? Photo op?" Agent 351 replies, "No words." He didn't want him talking over the radio. 174, yeah, so he's obviously reading something. I don't know what that was. We don't have it. But 174 then says, "Is that the patriarch?" And he's speaking of my father, right? And 354 replies, "That's the man himself." And then 174 confirms that 351 says has a video camera. And then a few minutes later, 174 says to the BLM Control Center, quote, "If you can log that we have Clive and Bundy and some others at the front gate performing a photo op at our gate." So obviously what's going on here is 351 is the one that knows what's going on. 174 is just trying to catch up, right? Then later on, 351 says, "FYI, we want to keep our undercover vehicles out of the photos also." 174 then says to 351, "I know that you are, but you are getting photographs and videos of all of this, correct?" 351 replies 10-4. 351 says, "That's why they are going to proceed down the fence so they can get shots of the ICP. So you may want to move the undercover vehicles to the back side of the campers over there." So they're trying to hide their M-ramps and all of that, right?
Yeah.
So they're not in the photos. That's what's happening. And then it goes on a few minutes later, the BLM control personnel says, "Can you let us know when the gate is clear so we can advise the contractors?" 351 says, "The gate is clear. At this point, Clive and my dad and my brothers are still at the gate." And then the control personnel says, "Be advised, we're going to have the contractors come back this way. They are currently staged, but they are going to be en route to you shortly." 351 says 10-4. And then 174, he says 174 just got off with the phone with them.
Good God.
Yeah. So, after, again, 20 years of the same tactics, it is easy to conclude that BLM agents created this violent situation to provoke my father, a volatile situation. It wasn't violent. It was a volatile situation to provoke my father into violence. And then they wanted to film it so that they could, again, justify the forceful actions that they were about ready to impose on him anyway. And the interesting thing is that my father, once again, proved to them that he was not a violent man. Knowing that what these contractors were about to do to him and his ranch and to his cattle and to his heritage, all my father did was calmly walk around their vehicles, take pictures of them with his little flip phone, and then he never said a word to them. And my brothers rode around with their horses, taking pictures as well of their vehicles and equipment. And one brother said, "You should be ashamed of yourself." And that's all that was said to them. So, anyway, however...
Good God, man. I tell you,
yeah.
If you get a chance when we're finished, take some, if you feel comfortable with it, take some photographs of this stuff, and I'm going to be making a video presentation of this, and I'll throw them in there if you want.
Yeah, the actual documents and stuff. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, if you can just take a couple snapshots and I'll lace them in.
Yeah, and again, this is just one out of many, many incidents that they created, to try to provoke. And, this incident just shows us, that they were intentionally doing it. And no matter what you say, no matter what, you might have some questions. I know we have some questions, like for example, did Channel 8 News contact BLM and inform them about the interview beforehand? Or what other types of communication were going on between the BLM agents during this event? Because we know that someone was reading something. What were they reading? Also, where the video that was taken by the BLM agents in the desert, it was confirmed that they were video recording Well, that was never in the discovery. So that's exculpatory evidence that they never revealed to us. And then also, so there's several things, that was the U.S. attorneys, again, trying to cover up this meeting. But no matter what, the questions, remain unanswered. It is indisputable. It's an indisputable fact that BLM agents knew my father and brothers were at the gate and brought in the contract cowboys at the same time while they covertly filmed the event. And those three things are solid.
It's amazing to me that they can get away with this. We see this happening actually all over the country, and praise the Lord that this was brought to light here. But these are criminal acts, Brady violations, and willful withholding of evidence, exculpatory evidence. This is a deliberate pattern to subvert justice. And there's people that I was in prison with that went to prison for the BLM, charging them taking a few rocks out of a desert to use in landscaping, and they're doing prison time without a previous record. And these people willfully subvert and there has to be accountability this time.
Well, the thing that people have to understand, and I think you do, Tom, but is that this is what government does when they're not held within their limits. And so, it's not that, we need the BLM to start, governing themselves appropriately. No, the BLM shouldn't be here at all. And so, this is always what will happen when a government entity is allowed to, act beyond the authority that the people have given them. They will always abuse it. It will always become a problem. And the issue is not correcting the BLM. The issue is putting the BLM and the federal government back in their box. They shouldn't be here managing these lands.
No, they shouldn't.
And because they are, and the way it's being done on a federal level, 3,000 miles away in Washington, D.C., there is no way to hold them accountable. You can't vote them out. You can't indict them. You can't do anything with them. They literally roam around these lands like they're king or they're working for the king. And anybody who uses anything that they claim is punished. It reminds me of, do you remember that movie, I think it's called Prince of Thieves, it's a Robin Hood movie of Kevin Costner's in it.
Yeah.
Well, remember he escapes, from the wars, and he comes back to his land, and he's got a Muslim man who is, anyway, he's famous. I can't remember his name. It's too bad. I really like him. He's a great actor.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Anyway, and they climb up on the hill, and the Muslim man starts to pray, right? And he sees this kid running, and he's running away from these dogs and these soldiers, and he climbs a tree, and these soldiers see him in a tree, and they're trying to kill him, right? And Robin Hood goes down there, and he fights them, ends up killing them all except one, and one runs away, and they're the king's men, right? And do you remember why they were chasing this kid up into a tree, and they were going to kill him?
No, it's been a while.
Because he killed the king's deer to feed his family.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And we love those movies, and we think they're so great, and wow, Robin Hood, and the justice, the injustice of them trying to kill this kid killing. I mean, how dare the king claim that the deer is his, and then when you think of that, then those very same people will say, well, no, we don't have a right to the land and the resources. That's the king's. I mean, it's insanity when you really think about it, because the very same thing is happening right here in front of us. We are being told what we can use, what we can't use by literally a kingdom that's 3,000 miles away, and their soldiers and so forth are actually killing people.
It reminds me of the whole cause for the Declaration of Independence.
Well, that's what it was there for. Those same things were happening back then. But this has happened over and over again. But let's not forget the reality of what's really going on here. These people act like they are kings of the land. They have literally created a small kingdom. Like, for example, the Malheur Wildlife Refuge. They have a king. He's the director. He has his people. He controls the land. He makes money of the land. He pays tribute to his, there is literally a hierarchy. And you ask those people, when you really think about it, everything from that county pretty much comes from that person, Chad Carges. And he literally walks around that place as like a king, because he controls whether any contract comes from, the people. He controls the full economy of that land, of that area, because he controls the land and resources. And, we need to wake up with what's happening.
And no more moo in 92, cattle free in 93 said a lot to me.
Well, that's their goal, but, to remove the ranchers. And really what they were planning on doing is removing anybody who had claim to the land and the resources, so therefore they can claim it without interruption. They can have full claim on it. And it is modern day conquering.
Oh, it's just, it's mind-blowing. It's really mind-blowing how they've gotten this far. But, American people need to really learn a lesson here. We keep saying this. They need to hold especially their local officials, I think, are I keep using that term. I have to stop myself, officials. Their local representatives that they've elected into positions of protection, such as the sheriff and, the governor. The whole functionality of the check and balances in government seems to be completely undermined.
Yeah. Those checks and balances were supposed to be, the states.
Yeah, our founders knew that this could or would happen. I don't think anything illustrates it better than Marbury v. Madison. Any law that is repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. They knew that laws would be passed that would be repugnant to the Constitution, and so you talk to some of these authoritarian-minded people, and for lack of a better term, that think that being law-abiding is to listen to every dictate and whim that's passed, such as the mindset of we have to pass it to see what's in it type of mentality, and we have to go along with that. It's just it's really a shame to see, but there has been an awakening. This case has been it's been like a brush fire that's woken so many people up. God bless you and your family and your father, and it's just you've been it's such a resource to the nation of information.
Well, the Lord has. I'm convinced, and I can never be convinced otherwise, that the Lord hasn't created this and set this up to give the people a choice. And it's been difficult, my family at times, but we have been supported by the Lord, given strength. But I believe literally that this is an opportunity for people to see the contrast between right and wrong, between freedom and oppression, between the people's, governing themselves, or a small group of people governing and using force upon the people. And we have a choice here. And just as it always is, God does not force man to act and believe in something. They have a choice. He's given us a choice. The scenario shows us the contrast, and so we have to decide which way we're going to go from here. And with that being said, I do need to get going, Tom. It's been my pleasure, though.
Oh, no, thank you very much, Adam, for your time. And, I'd like to hashtag out victory over oppression. God bless you. Thank you for joining us, and all of my listeners at Resurrect the Republic on the Republic Broadcasting Network. We were live with Ammon Bundy. Thanks, Ammon.
Thank you, Tom. Let's do it again.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. We're down here at Patriot Corner. We're down here to pay our respects and memories of Lavoy Finicum. There's just a handful of us down here in Portland tonight, and it's raining. We're trying to stay dry, trying to keep the cameras dry. Hello, everyone. How you doing? Hi, Andy and John Wilson and Robert Moore. There's supposed to be more people showing up. We got a good handful of us down here right now. Some good people have showed up. We got Jeffrey Stanek here. Hello, Julie. Sorry you wasn't able to make it. I did see your message. Haven't been able to answer you back. Hi, Eddie and Valerie, Tammy. We're right here behind me. If you recognize this picture, it's been a while since I've actually videoed from down here, but that's the Portland jail where David Fry and so many of them spent months and months in that jail. I'll try to turn it around here so we can see here. Hopefully that comes in. Yeah, they're a little better. Kind of see the center part there, the circle area of it, and then the two wings on either side. But that's the jail. David Fry, I think, spent close to 9 months in this jail here. But we are down here to pay respects to Lavoy Finicum. A little memorial vigil down here. We're going to light some candles in a little bit, say a prayer. It's raining down here. We're trying to stay dry, but it's actually, other than that, it's fairly nice down here. We've got a few people down here. We'll turn the camera this way, holding some signs. There's 10 or 12 of us down here so far. I know others say they're coming that haven't made it just yet because of traffic and the weather. So we're gonna hang out just a few minutes, wait on a few more people to show up before we actually get started down here. Gonna give a big thank you to everyone over in Prineville, Oregon today. I was over there, went to a meeting last night with some great patriots and great people there. The hospitality was just awesome. Had people that offered their homes to me. I stayed there. We actually had breakfast with some good people this morning. Thank you to everyone over there for the hospitality and the just the encouragement and everything. It was awesome over there. So thank you to everybody over there.
Well, we'll put them on quite yet.
Hi, David. Straight. I didn't get to see you. There were several people I was wanting to see and didn't get to see everybody while I was over there. So I'm going to have to come back again since I've been there already. I know how to get back now. Some pretty country in Oregon over there. Some mountainous area, rolling hills. It reminds me of a lot of Montana where I live at. Hopefully the camera stays on good here. With the rain, I'm trying to keep it dry so the screen doesn't get wet and shut us off or mess up here. We've got, like I said again, Jeffrey Stanek is here, or Jeff Stanek. He was one of the men that was charged in the Malheur Refuge. He was one of the 26 guys, and he's down here today with us to pay respect for Lavoy. We'll get him, he said he wants to talk just a minute here in a moment, so we'll get him on the camera and let him give you a little update here just shortly. He met Lavoy. He was out there for quite a while at the refuge. So Jeff said he'll talk in a minute when he's ready.
Do you want to go on speaker, Roxana, and say anything on a live stream?
Jake Ryan the other day, he was taken into custody. For anybody who doesn't know, he was there was 26 charged here in Oregon. I just seen that message pop up. 26 guys. 7 of them were totally acquitted. Okay. We got Roxanne Ryan.
Which side
here.
is your speaker on? Over here?
Yeah, over there. We got Roxanne Ryan on the phone here. She's going to say something real quick. Hopefully you can hear her. Go ahead, Roxanne.
I want to thank all of you that were there. I want to thank everybody that has stood behind Jake and our family. You guys are awesome. And just know that I am very proud to be a part and to be known by you guys and to associate with you guys, and so is Jake. And we are so very proud of Jake and the courage that he had in doing what he did. And to all those out there, believe me, the legal jargon in the courtroom is gibberish. And to the common folk, it is so hard to understand because it is gibberish. And Jake spoke the truth because he understands the true history of our nation and what has come down in our nation. And I just want to thank everybody again for your support, your love, and your concern. And may you all be safe, and may God be with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have you heard from Jake yet?
No, we haven't heard from him.
He hasn't been able to call
He got
out
moved to Inverness.
Okay.
And so, and he's there, I don't know for how long. They haven't been able to tell us. So,
okay.
We're hoping that he goes to the work camp at Sheridan right now.
Yes.
So.
We'll just keep praying for you, and we're here for you guys. Whatever you guys need, you know where to reach us.
Thank you. And just tell people if they want a writing, he just use the old address, the same number and address that he had before. I think it will get with that.
You're sure that his number's the same?
That's what Jesse told me.
It stays the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get that posted.
Okay.
All right. Love you, Roxana.
Love you guys too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
So that was Ryan's mother. I hope you could hear that okay. Jake, like I was just saying, went back into custody. The court took him into custody right away at his sentencing the other day, and they gave him 1 year and 1 day in prison. So we'll keep you updated, get you some addresses posted on him as soon as possible. It seems like everything should be the same. He's out in Inverness at this moment, right here in Portland, Oregon. His prisoner number that he had before is most likely the same, so we'll get that all shared and posted around. I'm going to walk over here and talk to Jeff Stanek here a moment and see. He said a while ago that he could talk. You ready to say something, Jeff?
Probably not.
Not yet. In a minute. Okay. 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 Give you a minute here to settle in. Okay. So we're about to start down here in just a minute. We're going to light some candles. We've got some roses that somebody brought in. Okay. Hey Kelly, you got.
They brought enough roses.
Hey guys, thanks for watching, and for the people who've shown up. We've got a few more people we're going to wait on before we take off and go to dinner. And before we leave, we'll light some candles and share some memories about what we remember about Lavoy. A lot of us never met him, and so we're just going to be sharing the things that we learned about him. Mine was all through the news and YouTube videos that he was putting out from his channel and from the refuge. But it's an honor to be back down here and to remember him. And it's nice to see some of our Portland people that are here. Tomorrow people will be at the Capitol, so if you can go down there. I think BJ Soper will be speaking. That starts at 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock at the Salem, Oregon Capitol.
At the Salem Capitol. So.
Okay, are we ready to start lighting candles in a minute?
Yeah, are we staying live for that?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, we can go ahead and do that. I'll grab my umbrella. You can just leave it maybe on them if you want while we get...
Okay, we're going to get some things ready. Give us just a minute. I'm going to try to keep this dry. We're going to light some candles in a minute. We have some flowers that some people brought down here. And we're going to get this all set up. So just give us just a minute here, and we will get ready here, and we will we'll say a prayer here just shortly also. They look pretty. The little petals look good on the ground anyway.
You're supposed to use yellow, so that's why I bought yellow.
So are we doing it right there, or are we going to set it up over here somewhere?
Wherever you want to set it up, and
I
just figured we could
Want
have
to do it right here on the corner? If we do it between the corner, we can leave it.
I figured we could have them pick it up there, pick up the rose, pick up the candle here.
Okay.
And I've got one lighter.
I'll get set up over here then.
My lighter has a flag on it.
Yes. Yes, I did. And we thought we'd do it right out here by the sidewalk. Because we can just leave it right afterwards. And I'm going to turn the camera around. No, you're okay. You're fine.
Don't trip on that stuff. You want an umbrella? No, mine's right here. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Ya, ahorita ahí voy.
Coming down live feed.
We're going to bring the flowers over to it in a minute.
Bud? I made it down.
Get a candle? I'll give you this one when you're ready then.
So which cell is Jake Ryan in and Ryan Payne?
Well, Ryan Payne's at an Inverness.
Oh, he's at-
Jake, I don't know where he's at yet. I'll let you hold up.
So I got some.
Federal prison for arson for Constitution.
I would have put them in there myself.
God bless you. Love you, man.
So I got some stacked paper tree to take home on my case in my truck. Yeah, I got here about a month ago. I rebuilt the whole front on my truck. Day for yesterday, I got new tires put on it yesterday. I got the front end all aligned. And I just filled up the rear differential up today with oil.
Oh, okay.
They don't understand that just own it, right? I should have brought my drone, but I probably would have crashed it.
And come around and maybe have a minute of silence for Lavoy and Annette, and then maybe you can say a prayer for him. Does that sound good? All right, John. John, do you want to say a prayer after we're quiet for a minute? All right, have a moment of silence, remembering.
Okay, guys, we're going to have a moment of prayer, then we're going to say a prayer here in just shortly.
So we're just going to be remembering the boy, what he stood for, why he showed up. Those are Hammond's words for him. They were a symbol of freedom that was being lost and taken away. And he said the only rights that you really believe you have are the ones you're willing to defend. And he showed up to defend those. As crazy as he looked, the mainstream media, he did exactly what our founding fathers did. And what they would have done today. In fact, he was probably 10 times sweeter than our founding fathers would have been. You remember some of the stories of Lexington Concord, and I'm thankful for Lavoy's example, how principled he was, that he was willing to defy tyranny and uphold the law of God and freedom and justice, and that ultimately he was willing to give up his own life for it. Very, very, very few of us are willing to do that. We have Jeff Stanek with us, who understands what it means to stand and showed up, and I'm grateful for people like him. So we'll just a minute of silence for the boy. ago, we were all watching as the news reported that the guys had been arrested and somebody had been killed. And we didn't know until the next morning who was killed. Most of the families got calls that it could have been Ryan Bundy is who they thought. And then the next morning, the media told us who had been killed and that the guys had all been taken here to Portland. And I know that for me, as many other people who weren't a part of the refuge, I didn't even know how to grieve or how to deal with it because everybody around me thought I was crazy anyway to be watching and supporting it. But I'm grateful for his sacrifice and that he really put his money where his mouth is. And I'm grateful he jumped out of that truck and jumped out with his hands up, just like the original report said, and that he drew the fire away from the people in the car to protect them. And I'm grateful that everybody in the car hunkered down and stayed safe and didn't return fire, because that's exactly what Oregon State Patrol and the FBI wanted, was that they'd return fire and they could just annihilate them all. And every one of them showed under that extreme crisis exactly who they were, and that is they were peaceful people who did not want to harm anybody, and we know who the aggressors were because we know which direction the bullets were flying.
Other family members, such as Ryan Payne's mother, she didn't know for over 7 hours that it wasn't her son because her son was Ryan Payne. Ryan Bundy had been shot, but she thought it was her son. They never called her. How she found out it wasn't her son that was shot was through the news. She had to wait for a news report showing who was shot and who wasn't. So there was people all night long that night, right. Family members all over, right, that did not know what happened because they didn't call anybody. They just...
And Ammon was recently saying that they held them for hours in the truck because they didn't know what to do with them because they just ambushed them without a warrant. And now they didn't know what to do because you can't just ambush somebody that's driving down the road, right? Unless you have a warrant to do so. And they kept them in that truck for hours, and they left Lavoie in the snow for hours. He had frostbite on his face in his autopsy report, and showed absolutely no regard for life whatsoever in the way they handled that entire situation. It's just absolutely despicable to me that we as Americans allow an organization, a terrorist organization like the FBI, who runs on federal tax dollars, continue operating on U.S. soil, and we wave flags and say, home of the free because of the brave. And time again, our own people are being murdered, and we just wave our flag and go about our business. And I'm thankful for people like Lavoie who didn't just go about his business, but said no when the second arrests were going to be made with the Hammonds. And I hope, if anything, it gives people more courage to know what it looks like to be principled and to stand and to say no. And at times, like Clive and Bundy said, even hell no. And to be willing to risk your own life, because if we're not, then we're putting the chains not only on ourselves, but on our children.
You was at the refuge also. You went out there to check it out, didn't you?
I did.
Yes.
That weekend, I never got to meet Lavoie. He was there, and
yes,
Jeanette was there. But I did stay an extra day. When I went home, I stayed an extra night in Bend because I was away from home. And as I drove back into Eugene the next day, that would have been 2 years from today, right around 4:30 that afternoon, I heard, and I did hear that it was Lavoie that was shot.
Yes.
And so then I knew. And I'm absolutely convinced that the FBI managed it in a way that they meant to kill all of them, to teach them a lesson. I'm absolutely convinced that the Oregon State Patrol were more than happy to make the FBI happy and do what they did. They murdered him, 3 shots to the back. That is a murder. And I'm absolutely convinced that the culture of our agencies, our law enforcement agencies, the FBI, the BLM, look at what's going on right now in Washington, D.C. with what they tried to do to derail a president. And tell me that the culture of that organization is bad only at the top. because we watch FBI agents lie, threaten, abuse, try to get testimony changed, and tell stories, even up until yesterday, encouraging that Paiute witness to fabricate and embellish what she said were damages. And so there are not enough controls on our law enforcement. They are out of control, and it has to stop. I miss meeting LaVoy, and I'm glad to know tonight.
Yes.
And I pray for him and for the family tonight. I'm very sad.
The representative to the Paiute tribe was the same one that was there at Dwayne's sentencing hearing. And I've not gone to a lot of court cases, but I've never heard of an unofficial witness, a witness that's not actually officially a witness. And I understand that it's because she is one of the leaders for the Paiute tribe. Didn't understand that before, but the story changed when she testified this time, or spoke out. As before, it was mostly concerned because they had dug in sacred burial ground, but yet Dwayne found a 20-year-old phone cable. And then this time she focused on the fact that when they sifted through it, that they found tampons and feces and all this other stuff. So I'm not quite sure how that stuff got in there. You know, there must have been a lot of stuff going on there that, you know, that we don't know. Either that or the Paiute tribe has lost their honor, which I'm thinking that's pretty much what it is. Their leaders have lost their honor, and their ancestors would be rolling in their graves had their graves actually still been there. They found nothing that was artifacts.
They actually they took artifacts and put it in that hole from other areas.
But when she spoke, when Dwayne was having his sentencing hearing, she had said there was nothing that was found.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Her story kept changing.
It did.
This is why they didn't want any videotaping or anything going on in the courtroom. And so, you know, that's what happened. I remember from my years anyway.
We won't make Jeff nervous here, but Jeff was at the refuge. He's actually a hero. He went out there and stood, and he's probably the only one of us here that actually met LaVoy. All the rest of us just listened to what LaVoy had to say. But thank you, Jeff, for coming down here. You are a hero to us.
It's an honor to be here, paying respects to a very honorable man.
Well, thank you, Jeff. We won't make you nervous no more. So
do you want to mention why the color yellow?
Why don't I'll let you? Yeah, you go ahead.
The color, the reason we have yellow roses is yellow is, it can mean mourning, it can mean sadness, it can also mean friendship, it can mean happy. And so the yellow represents the happy and the bad, or the happy and the sad, but it represents what they did for us, as to bring us together, to bring us awareness, because we have grown to where we've cared for everybody. I care for everybody that's here, especially Kelly, and there's a reason for that. And the way people stand, because
she cares for me, but
oh no, I'm telling you what, I would be in jail right now. I mean, right now, if it wasn't for Kelly. I am very sure of that. So I now know what it means to be bullied tremendously and to mentally shut down and not even remember what I said. I couldn't even tell you exactly what I said. I was shutting down. But that's why we picked yellow, because it can mean sadness, happiness, friendship, caring. It means all that stuff. So
we're gonna pray, guys. You guys want to join us out there? We're going to say a word of prayer here before we close down. Dear Heavenly Father, we just come before you tonight, and we ask that you put a peace upon the Finicum family, and that you let them know that what LaVoy did was for them and everyone, and that he saved lives. He is a hero, That's why we're out here, and there's people all over this country that's doing the same thing we are, remembering him today. We just want to lift that whole family up in prayer and bless them tremendously. Let them know that your peace overcometh all, and that there's a reason for what happened here. We ask you this in your son's name. Amen.
Amen. Breathe the Hammonds!
Woo! Yeah!
John, can we give a special message to that?
Yes.
Yeah, that we're thinking about you and praying for you and your family tonight, Jeanette, especially for you. And so we just want you to know that.
We talk about him all the time out of the refuge too. Out every day. You couldn't go a single day without hearing about his entire family. We pray for him during dinners every night. Very honorable thing.
We love you, Jeanette. We really do. We do this for you as well as everybody else. And if we could sacrifice to bring LaVoy back, we would. We would sacrifice to bring him back. He woke us up, so we are so much more better and so much more awake and knowledgeable because of him. So it wasn't in vain at all.
Like to say anything, Robert?
I'm just here standing.
Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming down here. I appreciate it.
I'm going through my trials. Going through some corruption myself, dealing with.
Well, thanks for for coming down here.
Like the home's going through. I'm going the same thing like the home.
Yep.
Yeah, they stole my child on lies and keep on going with the lies, and we just don't have the problem in the federal government. We have it in our state, federal, everywhere we go, you know. And we got corruption everywhere. And people need to stand up. You know, it matters how you stand. And if you don't stand up for your rights, people think they can just walk all over you anytime the week they feel like, you know. And like I say, I'm dealing with corruption. I have these people lying on me. I've had them already put restraining orders on me because I threatened to protest them, and they don't like it when you expose the truth.
Exactly right. That's the main thing, is always tell the truth. Well, thanks for coming down here, Robert.
Yeah.
Tell the truth and let the consequences fall where they do.
I mean, we have an attorney general that gets free from our
Well, guys, we're going to sign off of here in just a minute. But thanks for joining us. Again, here is all the candles and roses down here. We're going to... Daryl, that was Robert Hoffman. He's from right here out of Vancouver, Washington area. Don't forget the Hammonds.
Lying and everything, stealing my kids, you know.
Okay. Yep.
Hi, this is Brian Haidt for Who's Next, and this is Jeanette Finicum. She is the widow of LaVoy Finicum. Today is the 2-year anniversary of LaVoy's death. So I'm sure for a lot of people who are watching this is a pretty poignant day. Jeanette, I know that it's a very poignant day for you. It's also a significant day, though, in that you have now filed a wrongful death suit in LaVoy's death. Tell us a little bit about why that suit was filed and what you hope to see happen as a result of that wrongful death suit.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, and I want to say thank you to all of the people who have helped our family for the past 2 years. Whether it's been through hugs or other support, we love you very much, and we are grateful for our friendship with you now. But our family has filed this wrongful death for justice and accountability for my husband, LaVoy Finicum. We want to see justice in his name for the murder that they committed.
I know that people are going to be questioning what's the motive. Obviously in a wrongful death suit, there is a dollar amount that's attached to that. Who determines what a man's life is worth?
Well, we have really capable attorneys. Morgan Philpott is our attorney, and Rick Kerber, who works with him. And they filled out all the paperwork and determined that.
And when it's all said and done, what do you want to see happen to the people who bear responsibility? I guess what I'm asking is this more about vengeance, or is there a deeper purpose behind this suit?
Well, all of us should want to hold our government accountable for the wrongdoings, because it is not just our family that is affected. It is everyone that will be affected sooner or later. We need to put them back in their rightful boundaries. We need to hold them accountable for the bad actors that they hire and encourage them to either rehabilitate them or fire them. We need to have this accountability. They work for us, and we need them to remember that.
Tell me about this eagle that you brought with you today.
Well, Lavoie loved eagles. They were very symbolic to him. They symbolized freedom and liberty to him.
All right. Jeanette, I know this is probably not the easiest subject to talk about, but we appreciate you sharing with our Who's Next viewers the fact that the lawsuit is going forward. We hope to be a very key information portal to get the word out about what's going on. Is there anything else that you would like our viewers to know about?
Well, again, I just want to say thank you for everything that you have done for our family. We have received all kinds of support and help throughout the last couple of years, and it really has helped me personally to know that there are so many good American people out there who want our government to remember that there is a rule of law, and that is in the Constitution, and we want to hold them accountable for the things that they are doing wrong. I also know that there are good people that want to see this justice, and good people who have been able to express their love and concern for our family when we thought we were so alone. And I want to tell you thank you for holding us up and for continuing to be there for us. There is still much to do, and we have a long road ahead of us in order to have this justice come to light. So I encourage you to continue to travel this journey with us.
Okay, it's so important that we help get the truth out. To that end, we would ask you, please, like our Facebook page, Who's Next. Please check out, your page is Lavoie Finicum.
# Liberty Rising.
Okay. Like it and share it. One way or another, we want to get the truth out. And please stay with us. We will have further updates coming up as we follow this. Thank you.
Our first speaker, let's get started. We're wasting time here. Sorry, I've got my sheets here. Okay, our first speaker is an amazing man who has fought the good fight and stood his ground. He's a man of integrity and honor, but most of all, he's a man of God, a man who honors and reveres our Creator, and through that reverence to our Creator, it has made him the man that he is. I would like to welcome Ryan Bundy.
Standing ovation for Ryan.
All right, Jimmy. Well, I thank you guys all for coming tonight. I was invited to come and speak, and I have been contemplating what to say. And I don't want to have to hold that thing. You know, I want to start out with speaking about who we really are. It's been mentioned already here tonight, but I want you all to know, and I think you already know, but that first and foremost, we are children of God, and that He is our Creator, and that I am amenable to Him and to no other, that I pledge my allegiance to God and to no other. God created man, and He created this earth, and He gave man dominion over the earth, and the fowls of the air, and the fish of the sea, and the animals, and the plants, and the herbs. And He gave them to man so that he might use, and that he might use to live and to enjoy. He gave it to man for our prosperity and for our pleasure. And He also gave men their agency, the ability to choose for themselves how they should act. This is freedom. Now, we are accountable for our acts, of course, and one day we will answer to God according to our acts. But we are free to choose how we will act. This freedom is important. This freedom is an eternal principle, one that existed before this world did, and one that will exist after we are off of it. And we have rights. We have the right, first and foremost, to the right to our life. For God created us, He put us here and gave us our life, and no man has the right to take another man's life. Second of all, our liberty. It's our second most fundamental right. We have the right to be free to choose for ourselves how we will act. And of course, we have the right to pursue happiness in the way we choose. And no man has the right to tell us how to pursue that happiness. And involved in that pursuit of happiness comes the right and control and ownership of property, and how to use that property. Because we have these rights, we establish governments. Governments do not give us our rights. Our rights come from God, and they exist prior to the existence of any government.
That's right.
Governments are created as a servant and a tool of man to protect our rights. Government is to aid the individual in claiming, using, and defending our rights. And government is an effective tool when operating properly. Governments are instituted among men for our benefit. And when they are operating properly to benefit us, they are very good. Many want to call us anti-government. That is not true. We are very in favor of a government that operates properly according to these principles which I just spoke. Government is not supposed to be a controller. They're not supposed to be a dictator. In America, that is one of the miracles of America, is that the people are the sovereign. A sovereign is the one who has the ultimate control and authority. In a kingdom, the king is the sovereign, and what he says goes. The buck stops there. And it doesn't matter what anyone else says. But the miracle in America is that the people are the sovereign. And what the people say goes. And the buck stops there. And our founding fathers created this form of government for a moral and religious people. And they stated that it is wholly inadequate for the governance of any other. In other words, we must be men and women of morality. We must be able and capable of governing ourselves, using that agency that God gave us to choose for ourselves how we will act, and using those acts in righteous ways, to be able to govern ourselves and restrain ourselves from conduct which is not proper. our freedom should be complete. We should be able to choose for ourselves how we should act in every given situation, to do whatever you want. We were criticized in the court in Oregon at one of the hearings prior to trial, wherein the prosecutor, speaking of my brother Ammon, says, oh, well, he thinks he can do whatever he wants. Well, yeah, absolutely. That's freedom. Okay? Now, there is a limit on freedom. And that limit is that no man has the right to encroach upon the rights of another. First, again, our foremost right is the right to life, and no man has the right to take the life of another, except in defense, to protect your own life. No one has the right to take the liberty of another. Liberty is very, very important. Now, you know, this issue that we have stood up for is mostly about land ownership, and the right to use and control and benefit from the land and the resources. Because everything we have comes from the land, everything. And in there is also the definition of wealth. All wealth comes from the land. Everything you have, from the clothes you wear, to the chair you're sitting on right now, to your phones, to your computers, to this building, to the cars you drove here, to the food you eat, it all derives from the land. And so those who control the land and the resources control the wealth. And if they control that wealth, then they can control everything else. And I believe that God intended for that to be in the hands of individuals and not governments.
Amen.
The right to use the land and to use these minerals and these different things comes by those who first use it. It's prior appropriation. Our water rights are based upon that principle. And also beneficial use. If you put an element to use and you're there using it, then that begins to establish a right. And if that right is then questioned, then you must stand and defend it. And that defense sometimes is easy, and that defense at other times is difficult, as we well know. But our founding fathers understood these principles. And they understood the principles of what government is supposed to be. And I believe that they created a form of government that was supposed to follow these principles. I believe that they created a central government that was supposed to benefit the states by creating a union of the several states. And I think that is largely forgotten. We just pledged to a flag and said that it's one nation under God. And I would suggest to you that it's not one nation, that we are 50 nations. But yes, we are united for common causes and purposes, and therefore it can be said that we are one nation also. But let's not forget the individuality of the several states, and that each and every state is significant and its own entity. And, you know, there's good evidence of this. I want to speak just briefly about the founding of our country. First of all, we were called colonies. There was 13 colonies. And a colony, by definition, is not its own. It is an extension of something greater. In this case, an extension of Great Britain. You know, other countries have their colonies around the world, but Great Britain had these. And of course, they had other colonies around the world as well. And our founding fathers, after trying to do all they could to have their government, Great Britain, recognize their rights, to allow them to be free, and yet they incurred atrocity after atrocity. Finally, they said no more, and they wrote up the Declaration of Independence. And that declaration changed some things. And that there was a transfer that took place at that point. I want to just point that out. That in the last paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, it states that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be free and independent states, and that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right ought to do. So right there in that sentence, we see the transfer. They started out calling them colonies, which is what they were, and they ended up saying that these are free and independent states. There's a difference in definition because a state is not a colony. Colony is not a state. A state is independent. It's free. It's not an extension of something else. It stands on its own. Okay? Now, Great Britain, of course, didn't easily accept that. They said, no, we're not going to allow these colonies to become states. We do not want men to have their freedom. We want to maintain control. We know that there's good land over there and good resources, and we want to keep control of those resources. And so we're not going to allow that to happen. And of course, a war ensued, and the American people had to fight a bloody war. It cost lots of lives. But in the end, and I believe with the providence of Almighty, that we know history. We won that war.
Amen.
Okay. When someone puts their foot down, someone else is going to try to sweep it off. And they've got to stand strong, or that's going to take place. But our founding fathers stood strong, and they had the help of our Father in heaven, and they established that these are states. Now, at the end of that war, there was a peace treaty signed. And that treaty is called the Treaty of Paris, I believe, because it was first signed in Paris. And all the states didn't sign it at the same time. They didn't all go over to Paris, but it went around. Eventually, they all got signed. Now, that treaty was eventually signed by 14 states. Obviously, the 13 states would have been those who signed, but who was the 14th state?
England.
You stand up and say that louder?
England.
England. Great Britain. The state of Great Britain. Okay? And it mentioned it right there. I already read it. The state of Great Britain. Again, we're getting into that terminology, that word state. What does state mean? Okay? We call other nations around the world states. The state of Israel, the state of this, state of that. Okay, so what is a state? What is a state? Now, this is an important principle because at this point in time in history, Great Britain was militarily probably the most powerful country in the world. And they had lands and colonies all around the world. They said the sun never set. And now, all of a sudden, these 13 states were equal in status in the world with that great state of Great Britain, that powerful state. They just beat them, for one thing. Okay? And it's important to understand that this treaty didn't have two signatures on it. It didn't have the signature of the United States and the signature of Great Britain. No, it had 14 signatures on it. And now that also shows that each state separately and individually and independently had that same status in the world as Great Britain. Okay? This wasn't one nation under God at that point. This was 13 nations, and they individually signed that treaty so that the peace treaty applied to each and every country involved. Now, it was their intent to unify, and they did under the Articles of Confederation, and later they perfected that union under the Constitution for the United States of America, wherein a central government was created and formed a union. Now there's another term, union. So I want to back up to state just a little bit. I'm going to ask the question. Within these 13 original states, how much of the land within each of them did Great Britain retain? Can anyone give me an answer?
None.
None. No. Great Britain didn't retain any of it. Okay, so could it be concluded then that all of the land within a state belonged to the state and their people?
Yes.
100%.
Yep.
Okay? There wasn't a central government at that point. It didn't belong to Great Britain. It belonged to that, each and every individual state, 100% of it. Okay, so the definition of a state can be determined or can be found by the characteristics of the original 13 states. And 100% of the land ownership is one of the characteristics of a state. All right? Now, we knew that our founding fathers anticipated that there would be new states admitted into the Union. And discussion was had amongst them about how this was to take place. And there was discussion on whether a new state should be subordinate to the original 13 or how big they should be. They didn't want a new state to be bigger and larger to be able to overpower the original states. Anyway, there was a lot of discussion to this matter, and it was decided that each new state had to be equal in every respect to the original 13 states. And this became known as the equal footing doctrine. Now, this was actually discussed prior to the Constitution. It was discussed actually during the Articles of Confederation. Of course, there was further discussion after the Constitution as well, or part of it anyway. But that determination is an important determination because one of our founding fathers stated that, and I'm paraphrasing this, I'm not quoting exactly, but that if they were not equal in every respect, that the people would either not join the Union, the state would not join the Union, or the people would quickly revolt. And why would they revolt? Because they're not equals. Because they don't have the same rights. And so this is an important factor. So that brings us up to today. Is Montana a state? Are you sure? I'm not too sure. Does the state of Montana, the Montana state, does it own 100% of its land and resources? So Montana must not be a state. How does that make you feel?
Like a colony.
Like a colony, like a district, like a subdivision, like a province. Okay. I want to go back to the term union. Our founders created a union. A union of several states. That's how they say it. A union of several states. And a union is joining of two or more things, like a husband and wife. But those two things are separate and independent on their own. They join together for common cause and purposes, but not completely. They're still separate beings. A husband and wife join in holy matrimony and therefore form a union, sacred union. But they're still two separate beings. A union, by definition, cannot be one nation. Must be several. And when they're joined in a union, they're joined for specific common causes and purposes, but not for everything. And our Constitution, the Constitution 4, and I'm going to press the word for, and I'll explain that in a minute, outlines what those common causes and purposes are. And then expressly in the 10th Amendment, it states that if we didn't give Congress the authority for certain things, other things that are not listed in here, then we retain those to ourselves, to the states respectively, or to the people. In other words, we're not united in these other things. We're independent in these other things. And the 9th Amendment specifically states that these rights that we have are more numerous than can be numbered. I'm just going to quote it, read it. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. In other words, we can't list them all, and so if they're not listed here, they can't be denied to us. But if we want to believe that this is just one nation, and that the states are just subdivisions of, then the name of this country is wrong. Because the definitions don't match. If we believe that, then we're going to have to change the name of this country to the Imperial Provinces of America. I don't like the sound of that. Okay, and yet that is how it's being treated. We're being treated as provinces, not states. This central government is acting as an empire and not just a central government to protect our rights. And that is improper. It's improper. That's not how our founding fathers outlined this great country. Okay. So the land and the resources rightfully, constitutionally belong to, and I might add biblically, I do believe, belong to the people individually.
Amen.
And we have government that is supposed to help us to claim, use, and defend those rights to that use. But that's not what's taking place. And so this battle, so to speak, has ensued, this conflict. On our ranch down in Nevada, we saw that the government was trying to run us out of business. And it's not just a business, but it's our livelihood, it's our life, it's our history, it's everything we are. And yet they want to just end it like, you don't matter. Okay? The individual matters, and we take care of the individual. When each and every one of our rights are recognized, then the whole is automatically taken care of. When we try to think, let's take care of the whole and forget about individuality, well, then individuals can get peeled off and run over, and their lives and their rights don't matter. We're taking care of the greater good. Yeah. Okay? But if we take care of the individual, each and every individual right, then the whole is taken care of automatically. We don't worry about the whole. Should never worry about the whole. If you worry about the individual, then the whole is taken care of automatically. Protect individual rights. Protect individual rights. The Hammonds are in a very similar situation, where their rights were also being trampled upon. And the government trying to take and make their own and assume ownership and control of the land and the resources to enrich themselves, whether individually or as a group, still was taking place. And now we know that Dwight and Stephen are both in prison, serving 5-year terms for things that were not crimes. I want to talk about crime for just a little bit. I talked about our rights to our life, liberty, and property already. And our freedom, that we are to be free to choose whatever we want to do. Whatever we want to do. That's your right, to be free. And of course, our limit upon that freedom is that we're not supposed to encroach upon the rights of another. And so the very definition of crime and the very definition of criminal are those who do knowingly, willfully, intentionally encroach upon the life, liberty, or property of another. That's the only proper definition of crime. And laws should only be made to protect that. And that's it. In other words, someone who does something that does not do harm or damage to another person's life, liberty, or property is not a crime, regardless of what our legislatures tried to put on the books to call crime. Okay, we call those victimless crimes. There's no victim. No one was harmed. There should not be any law that is put on any book. But yet we fill our jails by the thousands, hundreds of thousands, with people who have not truly committed a crime. And that those who do harm to others are true criminals. And when our government becomes the violator of our rights, damaging our life, liberty, and property, rather than protecting it, then they have become criminal.
That's right.
And they take it upon themselves to enforce with the barrel of a gun those things which they want to. Those things which are not crimes. Violating. And that's what happened to the Hammonds. That's what happened and is happening to us. And they took the life of Lavoy Finicum. He did not commit a crime. He did no harm. There is no man, no woman in this world that can stand up and point to Lavoy and say, "You harmed me." Not one. He committed no crime, and yet they killed him dead. And they attempted to kill me, Shauna, and the others that were in that vehicle. Put a bullet in me. Without excuse, without cause, without reason, other than they wanted to enforce their power, their ideas. And government is nothing more than men Sir, do you have the right to take life? No. Can you delegate that right to another? Do you have the right to protect your own life?
I do.
Can you delegate that right to another? Okay. You can delegate it partly. That's what we do to our sheriff. That's where he gets his authority. Okay. But does that mean you relinquish your right to protect your own life?
No.
Okay. We can't, government has no authority in and of itself. Again, our government is a creation of we the people. Okay? And government only gets its authority from we the people. As we specify, our central government gets its authority from we the people, and that is actually stated in the preamble to the Constitution. which it says, "We the people of the United States." And the last line says, "Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." We the people are the sovereign. Okay. You telling me it's time? Is it? I appreciate this opportunity to come to speak to you, and I hope that the things I've said will help you think and encourage you to study and learn. I don't expect you to take my word for anything. Please investigate what I've said and find out for yourselves. And always, always call upon the Lord. Call upon God for guidance.
Johnny Cage says hi.
Show them you working on your
That bike's been the pain in my existence. Like I said, it's
Well, actually,
something to see.
you've got a couple of really nice ones over here. You've got a couple of them for sale, too.
These ones are all for sale. Yep. The Harleys are tough to move right now in this market up here, but the quads and side by sides definitely they sell within about 2 days.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Those are the hot ticket items. So that's just the Harley market, though. It goes in waves.
Sherry.
Right now it's on a decline.
So you got a pretty successful shop here, it looks like.
We've been here for 6 months, and so far so good. Just been throwing every penny back into it, and it's come a long way.
Well, you've done really well here, and we don't want to see it disappear while you're gone.
That's man upstairs sent me Steve. Steve is a big blessing.
Say hi, Steve.
Peek up here.
Yeah, so Steve. He's an amazing mechanic and technician.
Hello, everyone. This is Sherry DeValley with the Readout News, and we're here with John Ritzheimer. We're down here in Peoria, Arizona. And this is the first time I've been here. I love the saguaro cacti. Did I get that right?
Saguaro, yep.
Yep. Actually, cacti was the one I've been working on all day long.
They're new to me, too. I'm a Cali boy originally, a California boy, but had to get out of that.
What part of Cali?
I was born and raised in East County Lakeside, which is East County, San Diego.
Okay. You can scoot up if you need to at the volume.
Okay.
Is any issue.
Yeah.
We've got Miss Wendy back there holding the camera for us. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Sherry. Hi, John.
Hi.
Good to be here with you.
I'm assuming we have a few people in the room now.
We have a few people in the room.
And everybody can see and hear us very well.
Can you hear us, David? Rosa? Give us a thumbs up, please.
I have to check my sound on this because my phone has acted up all week long on these live streams, and I think Facebook is just trying to send me a message of we're really too popular.
The other day when Cliven was given his that's gonna have to do with that, working on the show.
Other than that, they say they can hear just fine.
Okay, awesome. John is reporting tomorrow to Safford. It's going to be at noon. We're going to be there. And anybody else that can make it, it would be appreciated if they would make it. We understand that not everybody can. That's why we're going to be there to live stream it out for you.
What is the name of the facility?
Safford.
Safford.
Is it just Safford?
Safford Federal Prison.
Safford Federal Prison, okay.
But it's quite a haul, so I understand too if nobody can make it all the way out there. It's a bit of a haul out to. It's right on the border of Arizona and New Mexico.
Okay.
And this is all related to your time with the Mallard protest.
Yes, or the restoration.
The restoration.
Yes.
I've called it a protest all this time, but restoration is a more accurate word.
It's potato, right?
Okay, well, tell us why that's so important.
Well, I still believe it's a restoration in progress. That's what we've called it from the beginning. And I remember how adamant Lavoie and Ammon and everybody was about this land needs to go back to the people, and that's all we were intending to do is get the land back to the rightful owners. It was a Harney County resource center. We weren't there to harm anybody, threaten anybody, infringe on anything. So it was just about putting the land back to the rightful owners for beneficial use, public land.
Do you want to talk about your plea agreement?
Yeah.
I'm going to stand over here so you can face the camera.
Okay, well, no problem. Well, initially I was facing like over 30 years. We had that 924C charge, and thankfully that ended up getting dropped. But, you know, the plea, it was a weird thing. It was, we had to come up with, you can't just go into court and lie. So we had to come up with a legal theory, okay? And so it was told to me that, okay, you want to plea out, you want to end the nightmare, you don't want to risk 30 years. And so we had to come up with a theory of how I can be guilty. And so my attorney said that she thought that the very fact of me being there, the very presence of me being there, could be construed as force. And so that's what we did. It was conspiracy to impede by use of force, threats, or intimidation. And I recall the prosecution quite a few times trying to say "and" intimidation. They were, and there's a big play on words there. There's a huge difference between "and" and "or." The "and" would encompass all of that, but then there was the "or." And I believe it was Ryan Payne, when he initially pled out, he clarified with that with them that it's "or." And so that's how I was able to plea out. And you know, I did receive a bit of criticism in the beginning. And I just want to remind people, you know, why did we plea out? Why would I? Well, the entire endeavor, the entire event, it started from our lack of faith in the judicial system. With the Hammonds, you know, we have good salt of the earth people that they're being convicted and tried as terrorists, and they're clearly not terrorists. And so we just have no faith in the judicial system whatsoever. Obviously, the Bundys and Shauna Cox and Wampler and these people, they had the courage to go to trial, and God bless them for it. And they were all acquitted. The truth actually did set them free. Mm-hmm. And so then I tried to withdraw my plea, and the judge tells me it's just a clear case of buyer's remorse. And I said, no argument here. You got that right. So that's how the plea came about, you know, and why I went down that path. I genuinely believe that everybody involved in this whole event, you know, Ammon Bundy said that sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? And we're all about transparency. And I believe everybody involved, we've all gone like our different ways through this entire judicial system. Those that pled out, those that went to trial and were found guilty, those that went to trial and were found not guilty. And so we're all weaving our way through this big messy judicial system that we have, but all of us have this beam of light on us, okay? And we're bringing about more transparency to other areas that need addressing. And so, you know, whether that's the man upstairs that set us out on this path, and I do believe that is the path he sent us out on, we're playing these different roles, and we're exposing a lot and learning a lot about the judicial system. And so we may not see the goodness that's coming from it right now, and it does hurt, and it's painful to the families, but it's a necessary evil to take place in order for us to actually bring about change.
Well, God does have a plan for everybody, and everybody will react differently to his message. But it is his message.
Mm-hmm. And he intended for us to be free people.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
The Constitution itself, you know, it's a divine document. So it's outlined very clearly, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. We get the opportunity to stand on the shoulders of giants, and as long as we just stick to this and follow this, we'll be all right.
Yeah. You have a list of things you'd like to discuss. I'm going to just kind of let you go with that.
Well, I wanted to talk a little. The other night I was watching an interview with Ryan Bundy, and I love how he just reads through the Constitution, and he starts reading amendments like nice and slowly. And when we slow these things down, we're able to see and hear and comprehend the message a bit more. And the Sixth Amendment he talked about, and he was talking about the right of the accused shall enjoy a speedy trial. And so in the very beginning of the whole Malheur occupation trial, the Malheur restoration trial, the judge declared our trial as a complex case. And so they were able to completely throw out our Sixth Amendment. And I had no clue about all this until I got wound up in the judicial system. So, you know, the right of the accused shall enjoy a speedy trial. And Ryan, they asked Ryan Bundy when would you consider it a speedy trial? And he said that next day. He's got things to do. So, yeah. and I'm right there with him. I agree 100%. And aside from that, the other thing that I really want to continue to try to push is knowing our rights and people understanding what a natural right is. You can't lose them. These are God-given rights. So the government didn't give us these rights. We elected a government to come in to protect us, help us protect our rights, and now they're the very ones that are infringing on them. But Lavoie had a great way of connecting with city people as well, and being able to put that message out so that we would be able to understand and comprehend what he was talking about. And so they go into the claim, use, defend, okay? And the example Lavoie gave was going to the movies, something that we can all relate to, going to the movies. So you're the first one at that movie theater, and you're standing there in line. You've claimed your right to that first spot in line. Naturally, people are going to come up, and they're going to be civil, and they're going to be lining up right behind you, okay? So as long as you're standing there, you're using your right. And that's what you need to do, is you need to claim it, you need to use it, and the next step is to defend. So while you're standing in line, say a bully comes up and says, well, I'm not going to wait in this big line. I'm going to take cuts in front of you. And so that's when you're going to need to make the decision, are you willing to defend your rights? And it would behoove you to turn to your neighbor, who we've all been given instructions, love your neighbor as yourself, and stand and defend with your neighbor. So turn to them and let them know, hey, if this guy cuts me, he's also cutting you, and he's infringing on your right. So they should stand with you and help you protect and defend your right. Because Because if they don't, that bully is just going to be infringing on all of the rights, all the way down the line. So that's another message that I just really want to keep alive. I really enjoyed it. There's a great video out there of Lavoie telling pretty much that same thing. And I appreciate them, and it's really unfortunate that someone like Lavoie had to die before his message really came alive.
So well, I wanted to talk a little bit about your family and how they're doing. You've got 2 little girls, you've got a lovely wife, and they're going to be without you for a while. Do the girls understand?
No, I'm kind of just telling them, they're 5 and 7, and I'm just telling them, you know, Daddy's got to go to work, and whether it's God's work, whatever the work is, they just know Daddy's got to go work for a while. They always tell me, like, are you going to Oregon again? Because I was gone up in Oregon for quite some time when I did go up there, and then the whole arrest was a couple more months behind bars, so they were like, you were gone way too long.
So they remember that.
Oh, they do, and it broke my oldest one up. It was rough on her when I was getting arrested that night. And
they didn't do that from the kids, did they?
No, they gave me 1 hour to turn myself in, and I was thankful for that.
That was a blessing.
Yeah, and it didn't fit with their narrative. Once I turned myself in, all the other people that were arrested after me, they were all SWAT. It was SWAT brought down upon them. Because me turning myself in peacefully did not fit their narrative of this crazy Marine who's going to go down blazing. And we were able to combat that.
I know Rachel's around here somewhere. She'll come out here.
She's in the pizza joint next door with the girls. Yeah, she'll probably come over in a little bit. She's handling it well as she can. It's rough, and
people want you to explain your the time you were given and what you've served already and how that's going to play out now.
Well, we're praying that with good time and everything that it should be about 2 to 3 months. That's what we're praying for. I know better than to get my hopes up with this government, but I've been a model citizen through this entire thing. They've got me labeled as a terrorist. I'm not a terrorist. I know I'm not, and even the guards knew I was not a terrorist. They were just doing their job. So I was sentenced to 1 year and a day. That does a few things. Why the day? A lot of people want to know why the day. So that automatically, like that makes you a felon. The law says anything over a year. But it also qualifies me for good time. The law says you need to be sentenced to over a year. So she gave me 1 year and a day. That was, I guess, her way of being lenient. So with good time in the feds, it's 85%. You have to serve 85% of your sentence, which would now drop it down to 10 months. And then from there, I've got 2 months already in where I was arrested, and I was arrested here in Arizona. I was extradited up there to Oregon, and before I was released. So that now drops us down to 8 months right there. And a lot of people tell me that the last 6 months could be done in a halfway house. So that's what I'm praying for, is to be able to get put in a halfway house nearby, and I can get back to work, get back into my shop, provide for my family, because I am the sole provider for my family, and this is going to be extremely rough financially for us. But we do have a very supportive family, and of course all of our friends and family on
I think they are gearing up for a fundraiser with Cynthia Prim and her group. I've forgotten the name. Somebody
American Standing for Liberty.
There you go, American Standing for Liberty. I apologize for that. But they're gearing up for a fundraiser. I think we can probably maybe get a couple other people doing some fundraising as well. Rachel's going to need some help paying the bills while John is gone. The shop is only 6 months old. They're doing very well, but it's only 6 months old. It's very hard to turn a profit you know, in the first year alone.
And
If anybody needs a good bike, there's a couple of really nice ones over here for sale. There really is. I'd love, Brett, take a look at these, okay? These would do really well, you know, they've got the little scooter over there, they've got the Harley over here. You and I could actually have a lot of fun on that, so think about it.
Patriot Mail Project keeps
Patriot Mail
addresses.
Project. Yeah, that's going to be a big, important point. Also, we need some money put on his commissary. We want him ready to go.
I've had a lot of people already contribute today to that.
Great.
Rachel put a call out, and as usual, you know, the people.
Well, we're a
answer.
community, and we're here to help.
Yeah, I can't thank everybody enough, and
You were there for us. We want to be there for you.
Appreciate
Okay?
it.
You were there for us. Because it wasn't just for the Hammonds, it was for everybody in this country. And that's what I want everybody to understand. Everything that all of you all have done has not been for any one person or any two people. It's been for everybody. And, you know, the ones who don't understand that are the ones that we need to sit down with and explain it to them.
Teach.
So, yeah, that Patriot Mail is amazing. I loved getting letters. I got swamped with letters when I was in, and it really helped the time go by. Even fellow inmates loved coming over and just reading the letters. And one of the best letters that I received from Erin Maupin, the Maupin family, her and her husband Jeff, just amazing people, salt of the earth and generous people. And I received a letter that her kids were going to school and they were wearing a Constitution in their front pocket and they were debating with other kids, and that right there alone just totally made everything worth it, because these kids are in middle school, high school, and they're doing something that I never did that I wish I did.
Yes.
And that's what we need to do is have these kids reading the Constitution and debating.
Dozens of hearts popped up on that one.
It made it all worth it. It's a hope for the future, you know.
And Patriot Mail Project keeps your commissary link and your addresses in there, so people can go to Patriot Mail Project on Facebook. And there comes the lovely wife and the one daughter. This is the baby girl.
Say hi.
And there's Madison.
Say hi.
Pretty girls.
He's watching your video.
He is.
Mama's watching your video while we're at pizza.
Rachel, why don't you come on down here and we'll get a nice family shot.
We're cutting your head off, Rachel. There we go.
Scoot on in.
Scooting close. There we go.
This is Madison, our oldest. And how old are you, Maddie?
7.
7. Did you lose your front? You lost one front tooth already, and now you got another. You look like a hillbilly now, huh? Got that other one.
Now, no disparaging
Getting
us
ready to lose.
hillbillies, okay?
And then this is Lily. How old are you, Lily?
5.
5.
You got a wiggle tooth too,
Huh?
huh?
Tooth too. You losing
Yeah,
teeth?
she wants to pull it out on camera.
She does. I'm pretty sure she pulled out her other bottom one at school just
my
to say that she pulled out her first front tooth.
I got $10.
Whoa, that's
Wow.
good.
For your first one, correct?
What a beautiful family.
Thank you.
You guys know Daddy's got to go to work for a while, huh? You're gonna be strong for Mom?
Yeah, he has to go to 60 days for work.
Well, that's,
Yeah.
no, for 60 days from work.
Some dads
Yep.
have to do that.
Y'all have a calendar to mark down?
Mark off the
We
days.
actually
We got
do.
a Patriot
We
calendar.
have a Patriot calendar we will be using. Thank you for that extra one, whoever was donated to us. So
Awesome.
we will be marking off that.
I dumped it out.
Well, we're gonna let you guys get back, and we're just gonna step outside.
Well, thank you for coming over.
Well, thank you.
Thank you,
Everybody
girls.
wanted to see your beautiful smile.
Tomorrow it might be a different story when you guys meet us there. I might be all tears. So.
And that's
Oh, I'll make sure and get all that on camera. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm gonna warn all you. I turn bright red. So
Watch what kind of mascara you wear.
you know, I don't normally wear makeup. So
It's probably a good thing tomorrow.
Okay. You got more questions?
You've got questions on there? Yeah.
Let's see.
Happy to answer.
Yeah, let's have some questions from the chat room
All
here.
charges should be dropped. How could the judge not see these are good men? God bless you and your family. Much love to the Ritzheimer family. If there's anything we can ever do to help, please don't hesitate to ask. So your wife needs to keep on top of that, you know, on her own page, let Sherry know, Patriot Mail Project.
Yeah, the other big thing is I have the only 2 firearms that made it out of the refuge, as you know.
That's right. We need to talk about that.
Well, and I can't say that I have, but my wife has the only 2 firearms that came out of the refuge, because I'm currently agreeing not to utilize my amendment that's outlined in the second portion.
You have lost your Second Amendment rights through this.
Yeah,
is that right?
Well, I tell people, and a lot of people, they say that, like, oh, you lost your rights, you lost your Second Amendment. I just look at it that I'm agreeing to not utilize it right now because, again, it's a right. I'm just agreeing to not use it right now. Mm-hmm. So at any point in time, I can claim, use, and defend that right. And surely it would end ugly because you're going to have a lot of,
Well, you're not an unlawful man. That's the point. You are a lawful man. Mm-hmm. And the law is telling you you cannot utilize your Second Amendment at this point, and you're being lawful by agreeing to that, correct?
Yes, but I have... So this is where, again, I'm looking at why did God put us in these positions, okay? So I can become a huge advocate, actually, for people to have their rights back. Nowhere in here does it say that once you're a felon, you lose your rights. The founders used very simple words. It was written at the 8th grade reading level, so we can read it and understand it, and the power would be with us. And they used simple words like shall and shall not. And the Second Amendment very clearly says shall not be infringed. It does not say that once you've made a mistake over the age of 18, then you can lose that right. And these rights were codified in that Bill of Rights. So that's probably where I would become an advocate in the future is people do make mistakes, and while I was behind bars, I met a lot of good people. A lot of people that were also facing mandatory minimums. That's another thing that we really should keep on the forefront for judicial reform is getting rid of these mandatory minimums. Where do they come from? Well, we have the private prison industrial complex now, right? So Eisenhower warned us of the military industrial complex, and now we have the private prison industrial complex and these for-profit prisons. Well, I'm a guaranteed paycheck to them for a year and a day now, right? And a mandatory minimum, Dwight and Stephen Hammond were a guaranteed paycheck for 5 years with that charge.
That's true.
So
good point.
These private prisons send in lobbyists to wine and dine our elected officials who are supposed to be representing us, but they're not looking out for our best interests. Their loyalty is to these lobbyists that are wining and dining them and giving them buku bucks. Mm-hmm. And then they come up with a law that has a mandatory minimum tied to it, and it allows these politicians to then come out and give the appearance that they're cracking down on crime, the war on drugs, right? Or anything like that. They're giving this illusion that they're cracking down on crime, but in reality, they're stripping us of our rights, and it's costing more tax dollars. So I don't think that I'm losing myself. I'm just agreeing to not use it right now.
Now, as a disabled vet, are you losing any benefits from that?
That's what's going to be difficult on my family. I am a service-connected disability and disabled combat vet, and you're not allowed to collect while you're incarcerated.
See, I don't understand that one at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand, I don't necessarily agree with, but I do understand a lot of things. I don't understand that one when it's connected to a disability. You know, that one just kind of confuses me. Did anybody ever sit you down to explain this to you? Or they just say,
they just tell you
we can, so we will.
You're SOL. Yeah, it's
okay.
They do have, yeah, it's just a messed up situation. So that's.
Well, it's a tough one. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I understood right, they're not going to cut her off tomorrow, but it's going to be very soon.
Right.
Okay. Well, we need to get on it, folks. We need to get on those fundraisers and get these little girls taken care of and get Rachel taken care of so that John has a home to come home to.
Mm-hmm.
So we will get on to that. Are there questions, Wendy?
We have your 6, John. God
Appreciate
bless you.
Back to the 2 firearms that
Yes.
I got out of the refuge. So, as many people know, I left 2 days prior to the ambush and the assassination of Lavoie and everything. I came home, visited my family. A lot of people were like, "Why did you leave?" To touch on that a little bit, I was up there the entire time. I was up there before Christmas. I didn't spend Christmas with my family. And some of the other guys were able to go home and see their families during that time that we were restoring the land to the people. And I remember asking Ryan Bundy and Ryan Payne and them and seeking their blessing, and Lavoie, and they all said absolutely, go ahead and go home. And I let them know that, you know, if this was still going on, whether it was a week or 2 weeks or a month, I definitely would come back up. And so I left, and there was only a handful of people that knew that I left. It was Ryan Payne, Ryan Bundy. I believe I said goodbye to Jason Patrick as well, and Lavoie. Ammon wasn't there at the moment. And so as I was leaving the refuge, I also crossed paths with Mark McConnell. And I saw in my rearview mirror, he turned around, so I pulled over, and he came over and we talked, and I told him I'm going home, back home to my family. I tried to be as discreet as possible about where I was going, laying under the radar, if you will. And but that's how they knew where I was when they called me up here. So I was able to get out, and we do have the only 2 firearms. I believe that they will have a value to them, not because of me. It's because of the overall what they were used in, and this is going to.
Well, it was an historical event.
Very much.
And it will go down in the history books.
Yep.
Just like Bunkerville will go down in the history books.
Bunkerville, absolutely. There hasn't been like an act of civil defiance to that level. I don't think since back in like the Boston Tea Party, personally.
I would probably agree with you. I'd have to.
The founders did not shoot anybody. There was no deaths or anything, but they went and they had to send a message. Sometimes that the government just has their earplugs in and they're not listening to we the people.
Mm-hmm.
And they
unless you count the bonus army, that could be.
I remember the bonus army too. Yeah. Yes, and that was atrocious what happened to them, what they did to our vets. So we all that stuff needs to be remembered and needs to be taught.
Yeah.
Jeanette Finicum sends her love.
I love you, Jeanette. God bless you and your family.
And I've got a hug for you from her.
She is something else, just one of the strongest women. We had the pleasure of going there and visiting with them on Easter, and it was so fulfilling. And then also recently, as many people know, getting to go to the Bundy Ranch was very fulfilling, because I was not there for the 2014 standoff then.
Do you want to explain to everybody about this trip to the Bundy Ranch and why you're going back early?
Yes, so there was no restriction as far as contact between me and co-defendants. That was lifted.
I do have that document posted on Readout News, so you can read it yourself.
Judge Jones lifted it, I believe, September 20th, when we raised arguments of how ridiculous it was, because they also told us we weren't allowed to have contact with militia. And I told my attorney I violated that within being 10 minutes of being released, because the kid that I went and ordered a McDonald's hamburger from surely was between the ages of 18 and 45 and was an able body, and so they finally were able to combat that, and the restriction got lifted. So me and my wife, we were celebrating our 10-year anniversary, and we had gotten permission to go up there to Vegas. I remember my pretrial officer telling me initially that she was like, well, trying to tell me that I couldn't have contact. So I sent her the document, just letting her know that no, that was lifted. I am actually allowed to have contact and see these guys. but that was not our intent. Our intent was to go up there and have a good time. We were just blessed and fortunate enough that I was able to get with Ryan Payne and Ariel, his fiance, and have just an amazing weekend with them. It made our anniversary so awesome. Ryan Payne, we went to a Messianic Jew service, and people that don't know what that is, those are Jews that believe in Jesus Christ, and just, it was an amazing service with John Lamb. So
I heard y'all did go-karts too.
we did go-karts, the fastest ones in Las Vegas. We toured the Bass Pro Shop, I think it was, and had a good time in there. So we had a great weekend. And then as the day started to wind down, it was brought up like, hey, Carol Bundy's out at the ranch. Why don't we just go say hi to her? And I hadn't met Carol yet. So we drove out to the ranch. Again, we had permission to be up there. We were still in Clark County. We didn't, we were an hour's drive away. We went out there. I spent 2 hours with them. Just, there is something divine about that ranch as well, and these people, and ever since I left the refuge, I've craved this spiritual connection that all of those people have. And when they're all together and the spirit's so thick you can cut it with a knife. And to see all of their grandkids running around. And Carol Bundy has 63 grandkids with 2 more on the way. I mean, very fruitful people. But the love that these people have is second to none. And it was the best time ever. I have no regrets. It's very unfortunate that how vindictive it's become and what's happening. I was not ready, and I'm not entirely ready yet. But I've got good people. I got Steve, who's helping me in my shop, and we're going to get through on this.
So follow through. What did happen?
Well,
from the Bundy Ranch thing.
We just went up there and visited for a couple of hours. We didn't.
And somebody took a picture.
We took pictures. Again, we had nothing to hide. We didn't think anything was going on wrong. Ryan Payne had a GPS monitor on. They never called us once. Like once we were in there, he was on a curfew. The curfew doesn't say so that he can go from point A to point B in this time. You're allowed outside from this time frame. So and as many people know, it's not great what's happening to Ryan Payne either. It's not fair.
It's not.
Not fair at all. And she reinstated this no contact order.
But it didn't get reinstated until after the visit.
Ex post facto, right. It's
right.
The picture's on Facebook.
The picture's on Facebook. They're so afraid of my voice, I'm not allowed to be posting on Facebook. And that all came about when the informant, Mark McConnell, came and actually tried to fight me at a restaurant.
You want to talk about that incident?
Well, he came and tried to fight me. I wanted no part of it. I remember telling him, I know the truth, and I forgive you. Mm-hmm. I had to forgive him. Like, I had to get that anger out of me. It was eating me up. And there's still probably a little bit boiling up inside of me. Mm-hmm. But I remember telling him I forgive you. And I'm his payday. He's coming at me because I'm his payday from the feds. How can I get John Ritzheimer in trouble? What can I inform on this guy? So he showed up there, tried to start this fight, and I wouldn't give it to him. He was also armed, and his girlfriend was armed, and so I went and filed an injunction against harassment, and it went to we had a court hearing, and he showed up with a bunch of people that were supporting him. The Arizona patriot community, if you will, was torn, because while we were all arrested and locked up, this guy immediately, within hours of LaVoy being killed, was immediately taking to social media and putting out a false narrative that we were in the wrong, and so he created this division within. So there was a group of people there that came to the court hearing and that were supporting him, and
but the judge ended up having to throw it out because it's not that it didn't happen, it's that it was only one event. And so in order for harassment to be brought forth or for it to be considered harassment, she needed more than one event. So she said, you know, this is documented, but I can't follow through with the injunction against harassment. But immediately all of his supporters go out there and they're saying, oh, John got whooped up in court and everything, and they're just pushing out this garbage, that Lewis Arthur guy and all them, just total garbage that they're pushing out, and it's not what happened. So, you know, in the meantime, I'm just trying to keep my distance, obviously. It was a real eye-opener. This entire case was an eye-opener, and we need to connect the dots from Nevada to Oregon as well. Mm-hmm. We know there's prosecutorial misconduct that took place. We know the things that were suppressed and not allowed in. We filed motions for the FBI buildup, what was going on, what was all. So right now, anybody that's out there that's able to help us connect these dots from Nevada to Oregon, because there was federal informants with us before we took the refuge. Mm-hmm. There was federal informants embedded in there that were following with us. I mean, it's borderline entrapment. This
Do you think there are Brady violations involved in that case up there? That would be. Did they intentionally withhold important information?
I absolutely believe that they did, and I believe that there was obvious collusion between the judge and the prosecution, because I'm the one, through my attorney, we filed motions to get that information. We wanted to know what was the FBI buildup, where's the reports from prior to this, what led to this, what were they being fed, how many agents did they have out there, how many snipers did they have on us the whole time. We heard the drones buzzing us every night. We needed that information, and they wouldn't give it.
Right.
That's exactly what just let all the Bundys out. The fact that they had snipers on them prior to. We had informants that are, you know, that could be looked at as a Fourth Amendment violation. You're sending in a government informant, and I have the right to be secure in my person.
So you need a good constitutional attorney to work on this.
Well, yeah, I do. It seems like the constitutional attorneys, though, are being ignored and gaffed off.
There's not a lot of them. I've been told by I don't know how many attorneys now that it is not, the Constitution is not required reading in law school. Right. They work on case law. They don't work on the Constitution. No, most people have never read it, and that includes judges and attorneys. Mm-hmm. There's the problem.
Judges, attorneys.
People swear an oath to something they have no clue what it says.
And I was guilty as charged. I went, I joined the Marine Corps. I was sent off to an illegal war. I was the same. I didn't read the Constitution. You swear an oath to uphold and defend this thing against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But then we never read it again. We never speak about it again. And I guarantee you 90%, at least, if not more, of our current military today and police force out there, they don't read. They swear an oath to this thing, but they don't uphold their oath. They do their job.
But when you saw Americans were in danger, you did go.
I did feel my own personal calling. I remember the night clearly, and my wife, I remember she was, the family was probably put into a bit of a panic or a frenzy, because I didn't know what was going on. I just felt a calling in my house, and I'm packing my stuff, and I didn't, initially I was going up there for Skylar Barbeau, the Marine jailed up there in Washington. Once again, Second Amendment, it doesn't say you can own a rifle with a barrel this long, not a barrel this long.
It's the same thing they got Randy Weaver for.
Exactly. And it took a lot of soul searching to do what we did. But finally sitting down and reading and learning it, and then that's when those words are going to echo for eternity. You know, it doesn't matter how you stand. It doesn't matter how it ends. It matters how you stand. LaVoy Finicum. again, a great man that it's unfortunate that his voice wasn't amplified until after his death.
He raised up a lot more voices, though.
He sure did, and people are waking up daily. I've gotten nothing but questions and stuff from people. Like they come in, and if I'm rocking the Constitution, this is a fashion statement now. And it's a good one. We need to keep it going.
Yeah, if the kids in middle school are carrying them in their pocket, it's definitely a fashion statement.
Yeah.
We're gonna. I'm sorry.
The gun fundraiser.
Yeah, we're gonna talk some more about the gun fundraiser.
Well, we're trying to find the right collector. It's a obvious piece of American history. There's a company called United Gun Group. They also run a social media that I know everybody's complaining about Facebook and Facebook jail and everything.
Right.
United Gun Group doesn't do that. They have no they don't oppress the press, if you will. So and it's kind of like Craigslist built in as well, like eBay and Craigslist. People can sell their guns on there, their ammo, their anything they got. It doesn't just have to be guns, but they don't keep records. So if the FBI or anybody tries to come and subpoena them, and I've spoken with the CEO about this, Todd Underwood, and they don't have anything. They don't keep records of this stuff. So
is this an actual auction? How are they doing this?
Yes. So it was set up as an
Let me
auction.
sit back over here where you can face again. I like sitting over there talking to you. It's a little bit more homey for me, but this is easier for everybody else because you're kind of facing the camera.
To see your
You wanna
handsome
see my
face
ugly
and
mug? Come
Oh,
on.
it's a good looking mug.
the
There you go.
fashion statement. Yes, it looks good on you.
Yes.
Sad.
So Todd Underwood is the CEO of this site, United Gun Group, and it's set up as an auction. They are also the company that sold the George Zimmerman handgun. George Zimmerman took the life of Trayvon Martin. It's not a very honorable gun, in my opinion.
Very
It's
controversial.
yeah, controversial gun, but it's not very honorable, if you will. And but they sold that gun for $250,000.
Wow.
So I did some research and I hopped online and I wrote an email out to the CEO. And within an hour, I received a phone call and he said, "We want to sell your gun." I said, "Okay, well, what's the commission here? What do you?" And he said, I don't want anything from you, John. We just want the publicity of being the people that sold one of the refuge firearms. So the money out the gate, I first asked for Jeanette Finicum's blessing on the firearm because I wanted to have it memorialized. It's the one that I carried most of the time, and there's plenty of pictures of me carrying it next to Lavoie, the man that made the ultimate sacrifice in this whole thing. And so I had it memorialized to him. I got her blessing to put his brand on it. I put "It Matters How You Stand" on the top as well, and then on the side it says "In Loving Memory of Lavoie Finicum." And it's been put in a case. It's going to come with a signed Constitution in there.
Just a single gun, though, right?
Just the single handgun. The AR-15 that's also been pictured and stuff that will become available in the future. But I absolutely promised Jeanette, whatever this goes for, half of the proceeds is going to your family for your fight for justice. I'm praying to God every day, just please, we want to see justice for Lavoie. And to get justice these days, unfortunately, it's not a cheap thing.
No, it's not, and that's pretty sad. The average person cannot just up and defend themselves anymore. You have to have permission to defend yourself. You have to have permission from the court as to your choice of attorney. You can't just say, "Well, I've hired this guy." They said, they have to approve it.
Right.
It's a lot of lost freedoms when the court has to approve everything you do to defend yourself.
Mm-hmm. And the other half of the funds will go towards the restitution for the rest of my co-defendants. I'm not looking to make a dime off of this thing. I really just want this nightmare to be done for all of us. I've spoken to other co-defendants about this, and it was a bit of a hassle too. I had to convince some of the guys to agree to this restitution amount. We had to take this agreement on the restitution. We were basically strong-armed. So initially, the government if the government was shooting for $1 million of restitution, okay, if our attorneys went in there and beat that up and beat it up down to get it down to even 400,000, it would make our attorneys look like rock stars. They would still be getting a pat on the back for doing a great job. But then me and my co-defendants would be tied down to $400,000 joint and inseverable. Meaning if one of them is unable to pay anything, it doesn't matter. We got to keep paying. Everybody keeps paying until it's paid off. It's not an even amount or anything like that.
Okay.
Now, with what we took, with the agreement that we took, it was able to get everybody separated, and the total comes out to like 98,000 or something like that. So
for everybody together, collectively?
Together, yes. Myself, Ryan Payne, Jason Patrick, we got $10,000 each. They considered us leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was some that had like 7,000, some that had 5,000, some that had 3,000. All the people that either pled out or were found guilty. And so it was just, we had to do this, and now I'm just really, I told them all, we're in the belly of the beast. We need to get out of the belly of the beast. And to me, that's just, I'm trying to get out, and I want to bring all of them out with me. Like, no man left behind.
Right.
Right? So it's going to take a lot of work, but absolutely, I'm not ever going to stop campaigning to get the restitution paid off for all of my co-defendants as well, and end this for them.
Well, it's like our battle has just begun.
It always feels like it's just begun.
Well, that's the way we do things.
Far from over.
And until it's done, it's just begun. Mm-hmm. Do we have any more questions going in here?
I don't think that's so. A lot of praise. Rachel posted the link for the gun.
Jeff is in here.
Jeff's watching.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. Anything past the Bill of Rights technically is a fraud. Rachel, they said they can't get that link to work.
Okay.
You want to try it again?
Yes, ma'am.
Might be there, might be yours.
Does anybody hear from Cynthia Prim on the upcoming auction fundraiser from American Standing for Liberty?
Yes, I believe it will start. They're asking that all the donations be sent in by the 17th. If you want to take a picture and send it to her, if you have anything that you want to auction off to help us.
Well, I'm not sure anybody's going to want it, but I'll donate a couple of Readout News shirts.
There you go. All right, I want one.
Sharon, if we can get your signature on them, that'd be even greater.
Oh, absolutely, I'll do that. I'll get Brett to sign off on it as well, and we'll see who else we can do.
The link did work for other people, so
good.
Just the
good.
one gal must have been having fun.
Okay.
Ty Turner says you guys have inspired so many across the country, and I believe he thanked you earlier, and he's from Arkansas, I believe. Patriot from Arkansas loves you and thanks you for your stand.
Arkansas, they got Jan Morgan running for governor out there, if I'm not mistaken.
I heard that. I was so excited to hear that.
Yeah, I had been speaking with her prior to when she blew up, and so best of luck to her, and hopefully they get a good governor.
Well, that brings up another issue. A couple of more issues, but we'll focus on this one. You were going to run for office.
Yes.
Are you still?
I can't. No. I was going to run for office. I was collecting signatures. We were doing well. I had probably 250 to 300 signatures. So things were going really well. Then this bombshell came down, and I'm having to turn myself in early. And I just made the decision. I need to. I can't be out there.
That's too much to put on to Rachel.
I can't be out there knocking on doors and trying to get signatures. I needed to be here for them on these last final days. It doesn't mean that I won't throw my hat in the race again in the future. I know in my heart that I'm genuinely for the people, and I was looking forward to going to a debate with any of these.
What was your platform?
Politicians. Oh, I mean, if I'm going to be just a downright constitutionalist, like I would love to see these three-letter agencies get, well, they're trying to disarm them and stuff, but they shouldn't exist. There doesn't need to be a BLM, a Bureau of Land Management. There should be an Arizona Bureau of Land Management, an Oregon Bureau of Land Management. Have it as the state. Why are we sending the money to the feds and then they send out way more than they're getting, creating this huge national debt? When a state becomes a state, it's a sovereign state. They apply it for statehood, the equal footing doctrine. So it's very frustrating to see all of this stuff, and it would just, I would genuinely just let the Constitution guide my every decision that I make. You can't go wrong. When you're doing that, you can't go wrong.
A couple of amens here on that.
Right. It's very simple. And I remember Ron Paul, I was a big fan of his, and one of the best lines, they went in and asked him, why do you vote no on every bill? Every bill that comes through, you always vote no on it. And his response, because I read it. You know, and then you have, was it Nancy Pelosi, or they're saying, well, we got to pass this to find out what's in it. What?
Yeah.
That is not how this works. And so, you know, I may throw my hat in the race again in the future.
Well, I know at the very least when you get out, let's sit down and have a roundtable discussion. We'll pick a couple of people that will make for some interesting discussions, and you know, we're going to hear more about your views at that point on running for office. How does that sound?
Sounds good. And I'm not even saying that I'm the best man for the job.
Everybody has to step up at some point.
Right.
Okay, I got to tell you, I ran for office at one point a few years ago. I ran for school board. It's an elected position, unpaid, very local. I got beat bad, but I did it. I did it because I thought it was important. And that's what everybody needs to do. There's probably 150, 200 elected positions in any county. And people don't realize that. And that's where they need to focus. You know, all politics are local. There's a reason we say that.
I just wanted to be that shockwave going.
You were great. I loved it.
It would have been phenomenal having somebody. He's getting ready to be a felon. He's going to prison. And just tell him why. Why am I going to prison? Why am I going to be a felon? Because I went and stood for the people. I did what you guys are going to sit here and lie and to the people about. So
you are breaking up a lot of myths. You know, people look at anybody that is labeled felon and assume they're bad people.
Not the case.
And that is not the case, and that's what you're showing them.
Yeah.
You're a good man, even though you've got that label behind you now.
And I've got a lot of friends that unfortunately have that label, that are guys in their 50s and 60s that made a mistake when they were 18 or something. And they're human beings. We all have rights, okay? They go in, they do their time, and they should be able to get on with life. I know there's a lot of people out there that have a tough time, or that they want to crack down on felons or anything like that, but I met some great people behind bars. I really did. And I tell you what, if anything did kick off, that's where I would go straight there and try to free these guys. Because those are the doers. I met a lot of doers behind bars. Unfortunately, they just got caught.
Yeah. Well, we're going to try and bring light to the constitutional violations that are putting a lot of these men behind bars and see if we can't correct some of what's going on in our country right now. Everybody on board with that in the chat room? Got any questions?
We need judicial reform.
So many are there with no victim. Crimes with no victim.
Right.
They don't belong there.
Yeah, I have a real problem with that.
Yeah.
The government entity calls themselves a victim, and they can get up on the stand and cry. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't go there today.
Another thing I really want to push, again, it was my lack of faith in the judicial system that was leading my decisions to plead out and what have you. We've got to stop this left versus right bickering and genuinely pursue unity. Okay, people want to talk trash about liberals and everything, and then the right want to, the left wants to bash us and call us fascists and everything. We've got to stop that. There was a handful of liberal people in Oregon that said not guilty for some of my now dearest best friends.
That's right.
And so they were competent enough to see through this, and they genuinely united. We were a united people, and so they were able to get a victory through that. I have no problem going and standing and doing what's needed on the Patriot forefront if I can count on my fellow people, we the people, in that courtroom to be competent enough to say not guilty, to go out and do some homework. What is jury nullification? Okay, jury nullification I don't believe is what took place in Oregon, because jury nullification usually results in a hung jury. It's one or two jurors that are competent enough to see through what's going on, and they say not guilty to hang it. Meanwhile, the rest of them, they're going to be bullied by the judge and scared and intimidated by the judge's, orders. And so, jury nullification is an extremely important thing, and we the people have confidence that we're going to be okay in the courtroom, like they were. Then that's the way the founders put it, so that we would be the last pillar. It would be we the people have the last final say-so. And, look, Rosa Parks, for example, she broke the law. She sat in the front of the bus. That was the law at that time, okay? But, and I've told people that I'm no different than Rosa Parks. I just got to sit in front of the bus longer because I had a gun on my hip, right?
That's a great analogy. It really is.
It is. And but she said it's wrong, and she stood. She stood her ground, and great things came about it. It made our country a greater place today because of it. And so I believe, we may not be seeing all the greatness that's going to come from this right now in this immediate moment, but it's coming. And we're not going to rest until it does come.
We've got a couple older men on here that just said they want to be as good a man as you when they grow up. They're older than you. Thanks for standing up for all true Americans. And Pete Santilli wants to know if you will be able to call co-defendants when you're in.
Once I'm in, I will be able to have contact with co-defendants. I have more freedom of speech and more rights once I'm turned in.
Really?
Yes, but right now the restrictions, that's why a big part of me, I'm actually kind of looking forward to going in, because it's tough living under these oppressive rules and pointless.
But once you come back out, you're going to be back under those rules, aren't you?
No.
Really?
No, not unless I do something that would justify them giving me some sort of a rule like that. That we have these people of a minimum wage caliber that are put in a position of power over us, and it's extremely frustrating. Well, you can't post on Facebook. Why? Give me a genuine, justifiable reason why I can't. Just tell me why. You're afraid of my voice? That doesn't work. A lot of the pretrial officers up there in Oregon were political prisoners, and they were clearly on the opposite end of the political spectrum from myself, and that's why they just wanted to inflict as much pain, and how can we make his life as miserable as possible?
Okay, and I have to clarify, that question was from Deb Jordan. Hi, everyone.
Right, it was Deb Jordan. I'm not allowed to have contact with Pete. Definitely.
Yeah, not yet.
I can talk to Deb.
So sorry, they come through on the same feed, or under his name, but it's Deb that's on there.
Thank you for that disclaimer. Much needed. But what are they going to do? Send me to prison early?
You better report at 8 o'clock and not noon, right?
Hey, don't.
I know, don't push it.
Don't go there.
Don't push
Right?
it. Come on, let me have some humor here.
I know, but still.
Sorry, Deb. I messed that up.
Okay, are there any more questions in the chat room? How are we
I
doing
didn't
there?
see anything else come up. Rachel's been doing a good job of answering as they come up.
Oh, she's awesome, isn't
So,
she?
yeah. So,
what a team effort.
Rachel, be sure you keep your address up there. People do want to send you a check, even some of the people. So, can you do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Put your address out there or your PayPal, all of it. Okay.
We need Roger Roots and Larry Kleiman and that. We got to connect the dots between.
Well, I think you got Roger Roots. Is he even in there? Roger,
I haven't
are you
seen
in the
Roger.
room?
He's probably.
I think he just accepted my friend request.
Oh, good.
Well, I
can't think.
I hope I tagged him. I don't know if I did, but
I did.
He's very interested in what's happening. If there's a way he can help, he jumps right on there. He's been, amazing in everything that he's been doing.
We got a fellow from Australia on here. Missed the start. He's going to watch it later. People from Ohio and Tennessee and Missouri all say hello and they love you.
Got a lot of supporters.
Appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you. You stood for us, like I said.
Well, you know what? We appreciate all you guys as well, because without you, we would be nothing. So.
Keeping the message alive. Did Steven give you his coat?
Yes.
Look at that princess.
You're going to be a mechanic here helping Steve, huh? You going to come turn wrenches?
The mechanic princess. I love that.
Love from Michigan and Alaska. They're all over.
Outstanding.
Are you guys still talking important stuff?
No, we're just enjoying your family now.
We're winding down and getting ready to wrap up. I'm just
Mount
making
Rushmore
sure.
in Texas.
I'm just waiting to see if there's a couple more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Educate the masses nationwide by sharing. Everybody share it.
That's right.
And the truth shall set you free. Oregon, everybody.
Now I'm gonna come back over here and remind everybody of a couple
Iowa.
of things.
Okay.
Remember, tomorrow's the day that John turns himself in. He's going to be at Safford Prison. If you can make it, please do. We'd like to see some support there. If you cannot make it, stay tuned for another live stream. We're going to, it may not be as long as this one, and it may be a little bit teary-eyed, but we're gonna get her done. We're gonna do it.
This too shall pass.
Yes,
This too shall pass.
Colorado's on.
Okay, and don't forget, we've got some fundraisers. We're gonna help Cynthia Prim with American Standing for Liberty and the fundraiser she's gearing up for. I will donate a couple of Read Out News shirts. And you know what? I've actually got, I don't know if this is I'm not very politically correct.
Me neither. I don't know if you know this about me, but me neither. I've
got a Confederate flag I will donate. I know
heritage,
it's
not hate. I said
That's
that.
right.
I was a big advocate for that when it was going on. And again, just makes you a target. You're easy to condemn, call a racist or anything like that.
Well, I think we might even have another "Don't Tread on Me" flag, another Gadsden flag.
I got that
Yep.
tattooed on me right here.
There you go.
Don't tread
I'm
on.
going to ask Brett how many flags we've got, and we will donate something on that as well.
Appreciate it.
They say they want to be sure and know the release date, Rachel, so if you'll keep everybody up on that. Patriot Mail Project is excellent if people will follow that for addresses, for commissary accounts.
How can they find it? Let's tell
On
everybody.
Facebook, Patriot Mail Project on Facebook. Go there and
Do they have a website as
you
well?
can join. I think it's just Facebook.
Just Facebook?
I think so.
Well, we'll find out. We'll get it posted out there and get it shared. Keep track of Read Out News. We'll try and get all that information out on Read Out
And
News.
for the auction, we don't know when that is. You have to follow Americans Standing for Liberty. Is that also on Facebook?
Yes.
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
that's also on Facebook. Somebody asked that, so. Okay.
Thank you all for everything that's been donated thus far and in the future. God bless everybody. I really appreciate this. And thank you guys for driving all the way down here and taking the time to come and see
Give me
me.
a hug.
We're happy to be here.
We are here for you as much as we can be.
God bless you guys. My family really appreciates it.
Thank
Good
you,
night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.
I got to give him that hug from Jeanette.
Yeah. Hold on. We're gonna give before we close it off. We're gonna.
My hug from Jeanette.
That's from Jeanette.
Love her.
I'm a superhero. My shoe. I lost the shoe. I'm a superhero. Hi, guys. Bye.
Well, you come by that one honestly, because I think your daddy is too.
I'm flying.